I'm Gary Null. This is a special presentation. On this presentation, we'll be talking about the aging process. And this will be broken into 3 segments. The first segment is a larger overview. It is for people who don't always like the details, but are motivated by visuals, by larger concepts and constructs. And so I'm going to share with you a documentary that I produced, and along with a man named Bob Marty, the most successful PBS producer in history. I was very fortunate for him to be able to guide me in how to work on PBS specials. And it's called How to Live Forever. Now, that's not really what it meant. It means how to extend your life. I did not have half the knowledge then that I have now, but even at that time, people found it of interest. Then after that documentary, which is an hour long, then we're going to go to part 2, which is the information. And when I say information, I mean a great deal of information. More information than what is reasonable for a person to be able to remember or even to type out or write out. So in effect, let's just say that you have a 16-ounce empty glass, you're going to get 25 gallons of water in it. I tend to give more information rather than less. I tend to go into greater detail. And though I will be talking at scientific levels on some issues, especially stem cell research, I will break it down into lay language. So do not be concerned if you can't always understand the scientific jargon. And then the stage 3 will be your opportunity to ask questions. We have people from all over the world who are signed in. We are full. We've been full for the last couple of days. And I have noticed that I've gotten the feedback that we have medical doctors, we have people from all different healing professions who are listening in today. So I welcome all of you. And the larger message is that it doesn't matter what age you are. If you start doing positive things today, it can substantially ameliorate negative things you've done in the past. And this is important because I'm going to go into some very personal issues that all of us are going to face. Every person on the planet faces. We are not shared these insights of how to transition from one place in life to another. Especially in America, we're just supposed to one day wake up and go from being single to married, from married to children, children to a house, apartment, to a career, a job, your education, certain limited friendships that do not threaten the relationships. And then we're supposed to be stable, but constant and growing. We live in a meritocracy society. The harder you work, the more hours you put in, the more you're supposed to be rewarded. And then one day, you're rewarded by allowing the opportunity to retire. And then you're supposed to enjoy your so-called golden years. But you're looked at in a different way by the rest of society, in our society, not through other places. And what we don't see in those golden years are people at Publix supermarkets packing the bags at the end of a counter because their income in retirement is no longer adequate to pay all their bills. Today, a person would have to live to be 85 in order to be able to successfully retire. So all the rules that were written and actually worked for about 45 years no longer apply to everyone. And even people who have been successful financially are not always successful with their health or with happiness. We confuse the issue when we are looking at an image. Well, that person looks fit. How do you know? Well, because they're not overweight. Do you know what their arteries look like? Do you know if there's any amyloid plaque at 50 years of age and being laid down in their brain is going to cause memory loss and then dementia and Alzheimer's? Do you know if there is epithelial damage in the lining that can cause a stroke or heart attack? And yet everything we do is predicated upon more. Eat more meat, eat more sugar, drink more alcohol, spend more money, buy more things, For what? What exactly does all this do in the aggregate to enhance our well-being and happiness? Nothing, just the opposite. So I'm going to discuss this in length. I'm going to give you some unique examples. It is up to you to pay careful attention and to write this stuff down. So if I'm talking about what causes us to add years onto our life, there's going to be a spectrum, meaning there's no one scientifically proven hard number. If you don't smoke cigarettes, you'll live 10 years longer. No, if you smoke 1 pack, 2 pack, 3 packs a day for 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years, there's no one figure that applies to everyone. So there's a spectrum. It can go from a year to 20 years. So you have to figure out for yourself, by analyzing your own individual lifestyle, when you've engaged in destructive habits, even if you were not aware that they were destructive at the time, how often, to what degree, and that then allows you to understand the severity. That in turn will allow you to figure, okay, I'm 3 years I'm going to take off my life because I did such and such. Now I'm going to give you a lot of these, the most you've ever heard of. In fact, this will be the first time in any public forum that I'm aware of that all these numbers have been shared. And this has taken an enormous amount of research to pull these together. On top of that, I'll give you the factors that determine the percentages of health qualities we need. Meaning, if you have a diet, and we all have diets, we all eat, is that diet constructive to living a longer life or destructive? And by what degree? And then you have to decide. If you've been a meat eater, well, you're a heavy meat eater once a day, or did you have it 2 or 3 times a day? And what did you eat with that meat? Did you eat buns and French fries, potato chips? Did you have soft drinks? Every one of these things count. That's why I'm saying that this is the most comprehensive, in-depth discussion of aging ever done that I know of on the planet. Everyone else is very monotheistic. They're very smart. Lots of very brilliant people in gerontology and anti-aging sciences, but generally from going to multiple conferences on anti-aging as keynote speaker based on my clinical trials, they're specialists in one area, but not in everything. And this is very multifactorial. So I'll explain what role does diet play, exercise, stress management, value of our beliefs, etc. That's in addition to adding and subtracting years. And then you'll take your time and you'll try to figure out how long you can reasonably expect to live from this day forward. So if people want to know, gee whiz, when people come to a retreat, how in the world do they come, some of them, at death's door, and a week or 2 later they're like new human beings? How did that happen? Well, I'm not here to explain that. So please don't have that be as part of your questions. I never explain what I do, ever. What I do is I say, if this benefits you, good, it's a gift. If it doesn't, you've lost nothing. But it's never a matter of losing, it's a matter of how much can you gain. And my goal is opening doors that have been closed up to this point and allowing us to see things and experience things and to involve ourselves. Now, a little background. I'm sure all of you have looked in the mirror in the last 5 years and asked yourself, wow, some stuff is changing. Maybe gray hairs, maybe some jowiness, some saggy skin, maybe the loss of libido, maybe drying out of that vaginal fluid, maybe crepey skin, so you're looking down at your knees and you're seeing no longer tight, Riesian skin. You're seeing kind of droopy, baggy under the arms, saggy, double chins, multiple chins, thinning of the hairline. loss of muscle mass, fatigue, no longer have the same facial structure, thinning of the eyebrows. This is not normal to the aging process. This is completely normal to premature aging. These are the things we can reverse or improve upon. But then there's a larger dynamic, and I was thinking about this morning. There was an article today from a Philadelphia station that those who walk very fast versus leisure walking, or nice slow walking, can add up to 20 years to your lifespan. 20 years. Wow. Now, I knew that exercise, and I'm going to be sharing that, is good for you, but this is just the latest study. So think of those opportunities you will now have that where you would normally go for a walk, you'll go for a longer walk and you'll go faster. So in effect, you're turning that sands of time clock upside down. It's that real. But there's several other things I want to deal with before we go to our film. For those of you who are not aware, and I'll just give you a little background, I'm a registered dietitian, and I'm also a clinical licensed nutritionist. And then as a clinician in nutrition, I'm able to help guide people in their health. I've been an adjunct professor at Fairleigh Dickinson University and taught at the New School, etc. But most importantly for me, aside from having undergraduate and PhDs in human nutrition and public health science, multidisciplinary degree, the first in the university's history. And my doctoral dissertation or thesis was on caffeineism. And I did 2 years of clinical studies on that. And I've done 40 clinical studies, more than any other clinician I'm aware of in the United States, on lifestyle modification, and have been published in multiple peer-reviewed journals. I have over 800 articles, over 100 documentaries, over 100 books, and a research fellow at the Institute of Applied Biology for over 30 years, where I did over 161 successful experiments in that period of time. All that was on anti-aging. So I come to this topic having immersed my entire adult life in cause and effect. And a lot of times where there was no precedent, literally you're flying by the seat of your pants, where you don't know what's going to happen, so you try it. And I'm a marathon runner. Actually won a gold in Los Angeles, the Jamaica Marathon, the Waterfront Marathon, the Jersey Shore Marathons. I did a lot of first marathons, the Montreal Marathon, the Marine Corps Marathon, and about 22 straight New York marathons, plus marathons around the world. First London Marathon, for example, San Francisco Marathon, Long Island Marathon. And it was a lot of fun until it stopped being fun, and then just stopped doing them. Did other races, over 600. Still racing, still competing, still training. And I can remember now, I remember this morning when I was on the track, and I was remembering when a group of us would train with such discipline that we would say, okay, let's do this mile in 7 minutes. And one person or two would start the stopwatch, the rest of us wouldn't. When we got to the mile, we'd say time, and they'd say 7 minutes. And you're thinking, how is that possible? How, without looking at a stopwatch before you start, how would you know you were going 7-minute pace? That's because we were training in what I call a quantum state of consciousness. We were training in the zone. Now, I'm not going to talk about that now, I will later, because we can also create in the zone. We can challenge ourselves intellectually and emotionally in the zone. We can free ourselves and go forward in the zone. But we used to do that every single week, and as a result, everywhere we raced in America, we won. We were unbeatable. Sid Howard, Sam Skinner, myself, the three of us. We won a gold in the Masters Team Championship. I believe 110 teams raced in New York, and we won the 10K relay twice. How's that possible when we were over 40 and competing against guys much younger? Because we were training holistically. They weren't. They were just going out there and pushing the miles, pounding hard. We're all still racing. We're all still, champion athletes. Sid Howard is, without question, one of the two greatest senior athletes on the planet. He hasn't lost a race in 40 years. He started with me back on July 4th, 1975, on the Coney Island Boardwalk. 5,000 other people came out that day. I know because I made 5,000 T-shirts and gave them out as gifts to try to get people to exercise. And they did. Now, why do I mention, these people? Because these people today are biologically in their 70s. I think Sid might be close to 80. And yet biologically, chronologically at that age, biologically, they're half that age. Because they didn't make mistakes. They were conscious of their choices. So right at the top of your to-do list right now, put down to begin the anti-aging process, to reverse anti-aging, and with it the diseases of premature aging. Conscious awareness equals conscious choices. Again, write it down or type it in however you want to make notes of it. Conscious awareness equals conscious choices. Because if we're not aware of the consequences of what our outcome should be, then we're just going to muddle through life. We're just going to be winging it. We're going to be on automatic. We're going to be highly repetitive. We're going to be living a very limited life. Life shouldn't be so limited because of our fear of what we won't control or might do wrong. We should be open to the world and all of its cultures and beauties and understandings. And that's what we can do if we're conscious. So you start a journey with intent. I intend to start my life over today. No, you can't. Yes, I can. You're too old. Says who? Who's in my body but me? Who's in my mind but me? Who has control of what I'm going to do except me? If you're 60, 55, 43, and if you think somehow everything's on the downside, it is. If you think from this moment forward you've overlived half your life, you've more than overlived half your life at the age of 40. By 50, you're in the death stage. By 60, be lucky if you're still alive in 5, 10 years. By 78, you've reached your lifespan, if you're the average person. Now, how much conscious awareness does the average person engage in? They don't. And as a result, every day becomes a ritual of honoring the previous day. So stop honoring rituals. Honor spontaneity. Honor the ability to be diverse and to change and renew. But that's also tricky because on a spectrum of play it safe, don't do anything that will cause you to fail and be judged as a failure. If you don't do anything, then nobody can say you failed at anything because everyone else is doing nothing with you. And then just be a spectator to everyone else who's succeeding because they're not particularly talented or anything else. They're just a little more adventurous. Just imagine this. Think of all the people who are successful and rich who are just dumb as bats, right? And but they're rich and famous because they took some chances. Why don't you take some chances? Well, I'm going to be judged by my family, and now you start resisting. Then we get the biggest reason why you're not going to make any changes. Resistance. Resistance to whom? Of what? Resistance to other people suddenly having to view me in a way that would change their perception of me. If I begin changing, and I no longer support their idea of my reality or their image of what they need of me to be in order to feel comfortable being around me, then I represent a threat, or my change represents a threat to that relationship. So are you more interested in staying in stale, moldy, past its expiration date relationships, just so we can have the comfort of being familiar with someone? Or are we more interested in living this life like we can't live this day over, so let's make this day count? Well, it's Sunday, I'm going to go in and do blah, 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 and then I'm going to blah, 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 and then I'm going to end up in blah, 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 and then we're going to go to bed. Well, then why did you think this day was significant? You didn't make it significant. You did nothing with it. That would have meant you would have had to have a conscious awareness that this day can't be lived over again. You have only a finite number of days. Are you so disconnected from the passion of life you're willing to surrender some of those days to being just a boring, highly controlled, resistant to change person? Yes, we're anal. We're damn anal. We're so anal that when we die, they're going to have to split the skin on our ass to get our eyes shut. That's how anal we are, Gary. And don't say giving me some more fiber is going to make me less anal. Okay, so you're not going to be less anal. That's your problem. So then we adapt to our circumstances, which is always maladaptation. Because when you have to adapt to something you're not willing to look at in a way that can transform your life, I've got a crisis, I've got a problem. Let me use this crisis to this problem. Let me use my heart disease or cancer. Let me use my gray hair or bald. Let me use my limp dick or whatever it is I'm trying to deal with that I can't and I'm fearful of. Let me use this as a point to change my life. I'm going to transform. I got here and I got all these conditions because I wasn't paying attention to my own life. I was only paying attention to the circumstances that allow me to get along with everyone else and have some measure of security. Okay. But what about quality of life? How can you have quality of life if everyone and everything you keep maladapting to? Because you're insecure. Because you think that ritual you were told you had to live by earlier in life is real. It was real to them, it doesn't have to be real to you. You don't have to live by rituals. So go back to conscious awareness. If I'm consciously aware of the choices I'm making, then I'm going to make good choices. I'm not going to wait till I reach a destination, turn around, have 10,000 scars of remorse all over my psyche, and say, wow, boy, that was a painful journey. Shouldn't I have made better choices? Yeah. Why didn't I? Fear, insecurity. Why? Guilt. The idea is we shouldn't let anyone else play with our life. And we shouldn't be so cavalier to think that we can just keep getting along and everything's going to be all right. Any of you who are listening right now have ever had a house or an apartment, a car? They all require maintenance. And one day we forget about maintenance and then it starts to decline. And then we see something break. Well, I thought you were going to fix that. I thought you were going to get a $2,000. I thought, and we start looking to triangulate our guilt by not doing something. What happens when it's our body? When we don't clean out our arteries, and we don't turn off inflammation in our brain, and we don't strengthen our muscles, and we don't push ourselves past reasonable limitations, self-imposed limitations. Well, now, don't do too much. Remember, you're 55, and, you're almost ready for the pins and warm milk at night. Says who? Says who? So all our lives, someone else is telling us how we should live our lives. And more often than not, we believe them. And now we're in the mess we are. So let's start off by saying that as of this moment, I will not make any choice at anything in life that takes away from the quality of my life. From now on, it's positive choices or no choice. Now, how would that How would that impact you? If you could only make positive choices. Well, it means you're going to have to change a lot of circumstances. It means you're going to have to reevaluate the people in your life, the place that you're in your life, your support team if you don't have one, getting one, the people who've got your back and are willing to, support you in the changes you're making without criticizing you or feeling threatened because of your change, who are happy for your success, not jealous. And that's the journey that we're about to take. 5 years ago, and we all were around 5 years ago, I would have a weekly, when I was in New York, I would get a lot of my friends together because I'm one of those people who believe that you don't have friends unless you engage them. Has it been that long since we've been together? Yeah, you haven't called in, a year and a half? I've been meaning to. No, you haven't. No, I have. If you meant to call me, you would have. I was just no longer your priority. It's like someone calling you when you're younger at a Friday night at 7 o'clock. Hey, what's going on? Nothing. Why don't we go do something? Why are you calling me on a Friday night at 7 o'clock? Because the other people you wanted to be with more than me already were busy. So I'm your fallback position of, well, if I can't have the best, I'll have whatever's rest. So I'm the rest of nothing. So no, I'd rather be by myself and pretend to be around someone who cares about me. No, if you care about people, be with them. Or be honest enough to explain why that journey now has to separate. Let it go. Appreciate it what it was. So we get together, and we generally would have a meal, and at a macrobiotic restaurant. There were two. But the one that people enjoyed was either Kendall Cafe on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, or over on 2 blocks away was a place called Manna. She was there about 31 years. We would be eating there. And we go from eating there, people would eat whatever they wanted, and then we go to a Broadway show or a movie, and then we walk back uptown and have dessert around 11 o'clock at night at my health food store. It was just a wonderful opportunity to make fun of each other. And that's what friends do. They laugh at each other. Because they're the only ones that can laugh at you for all your little idiosyncratic behaviors, and you know it's all done in good fun, so you laugh with them. When you can't laugh at yourself or other people, boy, have you got problems. Then you're a BAI listener. So you gotta lighten up, and that's what we did. It was just a wonderful, wonderful time. Now, what makes this important, and I'm going to share this with you now because I'm sure you all have your own experiences, but I want to highlight this, is at that dinner would have been Dr. Martin Feldman, wonderful physician, bright guy, #1 at Yale Medical School, then College of Physician Surgeon, board-certified neurologist, and qualified in psychiatry, over 80 articles published in peer-reviewed journals. That was before he met me. And he changed his whole practice, and then he became a holistic doctor, never gave drugs again, but saved a lot of lives. Virginia Reed, phenomenal dancer, funny beyond belief, and quick mind. And Manette Loudon, before that, and Neil Kramer, a lawyer, great athlete, Tom Larson, who helped run one of the divisions of a major Long Island hospital. And what's different is that they're all dead. Now, just a little bit before that, there were other people. One of the deans at Fairleigh Dickinson, Ron Colucci, Dr. Donald Mullen, the Albert Ellis Center, Dr. Elaine Kahn, Dr. Michael Elner, also passed. And Dr. Nicholas Gonzalez, and Dr. Mitchell Gaynor passed. And from my hometown, guys that I grew up with and later came and worked with me, George Marcus, Tom Croft, Ron McCaldy, dead. Win Latronic, dead. Andy Kaufman, the comedian, dead. Leonard Steinman, Howard, my brother, Bernie Kornfeld, Bob Guccione. All close friends. All dead. 14 people. There's still a few alive. They're 80. Steve Brown and Ron Milkey, 2 good friends. Ron was the first person I ever met in New York, in Cinnabit. The Institute for International Education over at the UN. That's where we met, working. been friends ever since. Now, why are they still alive and the other people dead? They were all wonderful human beings. I feel blessed that they were in my life for a long time. Because everyone else took their health for granted. They always thought there would be time they could change. And because some of them exercised and were never overweight, they assumed that as long as you weren't overweight, you were healthy. Virginia Reed said she could go out and dance all night, and she could. One of the best dancers I've ever seen or danced with. And I said to her when I watched what she was eating, I said, Virginia, that's all really harmful for your arteries. She said, do I look like my arteries are bad? I said, you can't see in your arteries, Virginia. I said, understand something. You're eating everything is pro-inflammatory. That is going to cause what you cannot see or feel, elevated homocysteine, elevated C-reactive protein, elevated fibrinogen levels. These are inflammatory markers that when they're elevated, that makes you more susceptible to a heart attack or stroke. Yeah? She didn't care. In fact, with no training, I took her out to San Francisco to do the second San Francisco Marathon, and she won the gold medal. And boy, she was proud of that. And how I pushed her through that whole race. In fact, at one time, she was big. She was like 6'1". And at the 20-mile mark, she wanted to quit. And I said, no, we're not quitting. No. You're only 6 miles to go, and this is where you're going to start passing people. And she just turned around and she slugged at me. And I says, now, Virginia, you're angry right now, but get over your anger. Let's get back in the race. And she did, and she won. And she never talked about anything except how other people could do what they couldn't imagine and break through barriers. And then she had a stroke. And I went immediately and I said, not to worry, you got the A-team on your side. We'll get you well. Never used any of my protocols. And then one day while having a sandwich in a delicatessen, she said, oh no, and she was with her partner, dropped dead of a stroke. So you see, just a few years ago, these people were laughing and joyful and sharing the best they could be as a human being in their friendship. How many of you can say that there was someone in your life who today is not? And do you ever wonder, what if they would have done things differently? What if? Now, of course, there's no redo in this once they're gone, but then why can't we learn the lesson that maybe someone else chose not to? So when we have wonderful, loving, joyful people in our lives, it's sadness with a sense of mourning that, wow, it didn't have to be this way. Even as we speak, my caretaker today went up to put his mom in hospice care. Because, and this is what's interesting, is 6 months ago, he said, would you try to talk with her? And I did. In fact, Luann counseled the brother and I counseled the mother. They didn't want to change. I'm not going to change my food. I like this. I'm not going to give this up. Okay. You can't force people to change. You can't. No, the brother's had a couple of heart attacks and the mother's now in hospice care. And the brother, my caretaker, said, it didn't have to be this way. This is the pain that people go through when they themselves have changed. And they just want other people to live as long as life as they can, to enjoy them as best they can. So that's part of the pain of the reality that we all face, trying to help those that we love who don't want our help. Now, the film you're about to see is going to give you the overview. Not a lot of details, but enough that it can motivate people. That's what it was meant to do. And the producer didn't want to do this particular one. he wanted me to do a program on women's health. And I said, there are lots of good women's programs. And he said, what do you want to do? And I said, one on aging. He said, well, nobody cares about aging. I said, yeah, they do. They're just not talking about it. Everybody looks in the mirror. Everybody knows what it's like when they can't do what they once did with ease. It's one of those big soft spots that's in the American psyche. Nobody likes the idea that they're getting older because we're taught that everything is inevitable, and all the ads on television show people in decrepit, weakened, and infirm and diseased states. They never show you the way you could be if you did something different. So reluctantly, he decided to go in and do this. And I wrote it, and we did it. One take. This is one take, 1 hour. That was it. He had booked the studio for 3 days, and he had produced over 1,200 specials for PBS. He did all the famous ones. He said, it's going to take 3 days. I said, it'll take an hour. He said, that's not possible. It took an hour. Then we played it down in Miami at 4 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, and the president, the station manager, on driving in, very nice guy, said, well, I just want to apologize in advance because you're up against Dan Marino, the Miami Dolphins superstar quarterback, and a beautiful day, so people are going to be at the beach, so we're not going to have much of an audience. And I said, okay. And sure enough, there was no one there, just 2 older women at a table to take phone calls. And they had some stupid stuff up on a monitor I wasn't about to read. I said, I just told the cameraman, can I just wing it? He said, no one's here. Do whatever you want. So I just winged it. And then the show was over, and, an hour and a half later, and he said, how'd it go? I said, I think it went all right. I saw the woman on the telephone. I said, what will it take to get me invited back? And he said, well, we had Burt Bacharach in last night, and he did a $1,500. So if you did $1,000, you'll get invited back. I said, good. And so he took him back to the hotel, and he said, I'll pick you up at 6 o'clock in the morning so we can get airplane. And 6 o'clock he was there. He said, well, I got good news and bad news. I said, what's the good news? He said, the good news is you didn't raise $1,000. You raised $136,000, the most in the history of the station with one showing. And this wasn't prime time. It wasn't promoted. He said, but everyone all over PBS land heard about that this morning because we have this internet that shows us the results, see which programs wearing or hits or misses. And he said this just stunned everyone. So the bad news is you're not going back to New York. You're now going to go up to Fort Lauderdale, and then from Fort Lauderdale to West Palm Beach, and West Palm Beach to Tampa, and Tampa over to Orlando, and then you're going to go, up the East Coast to North Carolina. And all these. I was out on the road 39 days and set every record in the history of PBS. It was the biggest hit they'd ever had up to that point in their history, and as an individual, since then as well. It's called How to Live Forever. So you see, what no one had done up to this point didn't mean that no one was interested. It just meant that no one had provided the tools for us to learn about it. And I knew I couldn't be that technical. I had to do everything kind of in an overview, but now we go from that overview into real details when this finishes. And then I'll be happy to take your questions. I never let people know how long a webinar is going to be. Mine tend to go longer, but you'll find this of interest. So let's watch now How to Live Forever. It's just an hour, and then we'll go into the nitty-gritties.
What if I told you that 70 years is half of what you should be living? What if I told you that we could reverse however old you are now? So you're 50? What if by following a simple program, an easy program, a program that is absolutely capable of being followed by everyone watching right now, that I could knock in 2 years, if you followed, I could knock 5 years of your biological age off? What if you're 70 and we could make you 60? What if you're 80 and we could make you 70? And not just that, what if the diseases of arthritis, heart disease, dementia, forgetfulness, fatigue, what if we could eliminate those completely? Now, I'm not promising you can live indefinitely. That would be false. But I am promising you that we have the knowledge, we have the science, we have the wherewithal to stop disease. That I will promise you today. You do not have to be sick. And if your doctor or anyone else tells you that, well, your heart disease is inevitable, high cholesterol is inevitable, they are wrong. We are at the threshold. We have the knowledge to reinvent the genetic sequencing within our body. And we have done it. Many of you have done it naturally. And by the way, that should make people wake up and pay attention, because in this program today, you're going to find out how some of you have given up your medications, reversed your aging process, and done it with ease. You change your diet, you change your attitude, you change your stress levels, and suddenly the years start rolling back and the diseases are not going to be manifested. Disease can only exist where there's conflict. In the absence of conflict, there is bliss, and bliss is where healing occurs. So let's go on our healing journey.
Gary Null is an internationally certified clinical nutritionist and educator. This 3-part anti-aging program helps you repair, rebalance, and rejuvenate your body, mind, and spirit. How to Live Forever begins with rebuilding the body. Now, here's Gary Null.
I'm Gary Null, and we're here today to show you how, yes, it is possible to reverse the aging process naturally without genetic engineering. We're going to look at all this in 3 parts of our program: repairing, rebuilding, rebalancing, and rejuvenating body, mind, and spirit. A little bit about myself. I hold a PhD in human nutrition and public health science. Undergraduate degrees in the same, also a doctorate in psychology. I've been a competitive athlete, a research scientist, socio-clinical professor of nutritional physiology and public health science. I've been an educator and an advocate for better health. In fact, for the past 25 years, I've devoted almost all of my time to studying how do we slow down and reverse diseases. I've accomplished this by producing award-winning documentaries and books and scientific articles of all kinds. I teach people every night in classes, and I hold seminars on how we can understand the body in disease and wellness. So that's what I'm about, and that's what this program is about. And for the last 10 years, almost all of my work has been in how to reverse or slow down the aging process. This culminated just a few weeks ago in what was the first study of its kind done in this country. I took people, many of you, a total of 307 people from the general population who wanted to see if it was possible to reverse the aging process and do it naturally, no drugs. And I put them on a broad spectrum program. Diet changes, which I'll get into later in specifics, nutrients that are not normally found in adequate amounts in the diet. I put people on a high chlorophyll diet. Chlorophyll is the blood of the plant, and it is what detoxifies the body. And I'll get into detoxification a little later, how we detoxify, cleanse, rejuvenate, revitalize, repair. So I completed that 1.5-year study. For those people who stuck with the protocol, who stayed with it, the results were nothing less than spectacular. We had people who had had allergies for 30 years, gone. Arthritis, gone. We had people who had dementia. People who were taking 5, 10, and 15 medications. Now they're taking no medications. And they wean themselves off naturally. People with elevated cholesterol normal. Blood pressure, normal. One man has lost 100, his name is Kevin. He lost 155 pounds in a year. And he did it without dieting, eating normal amounts of calories, but he ate different calories. So change is easy if you have a program, and I have a program. I'm going to give you the program a little later on in our in our discussion. If you change your diet 100% confident that you can change it and you stick with it, you will change your life. I'm going to show you something of where disease starts. Why do we get old? Myth number one, the basic four food group will not keep you healthy, it will cause disease. It is the primary cause of disease. Human disease is caused by many of these foods. Sugar's at the top of the list. Get the sugar out. If sugar were invented today for the first time, it'd be banned as a toxin, as a poison. It would never be allowed into our system. This is what goes into the average person. A lot of it's disguised. You'll see the word glucose, corn syrup. Well, grape sugar, it's all sugar. And all of it is bad for your system. It feeds yeast, it feeds bacteria, it lowers the immune response. This is how much sugar the average American has each day. Now, would you take this and just eat this right now? I don't think so. But that's one of the reasons we're overweight. Now, this is a pizza. The average American eats a pizza. What's in a pizza? Well, you got pepperoni. Pepperoni is an interesting phenomenon, isn't it? A meat that doesn't go bad cannot be good for you. And it's got cheese, that's a common allergen. And it's got wheat, that's a gluten, that really will blow up in your stomach. That's why a lot of you have distended bellies and indigestion. By the way, one of the reasons you get tired in the afternoon for about 2 hours is because of wheat in the sandwich or in the pasta or something. It has an effect upon the brain of causing brain fatigue, that brain fog. So you get rid of this and suddenly you have more energy. Question, just from the audience, how many of you after giving up on wheat and dairy found that you could think clearer, you had more energy? Look at this, all these hands of these people. It's just one example. Now we have all kinds of chocolate. By the way, chocolate has a lot of caffeine, and caffeine is a central nervous stimulant. It'll stimulate your central nervous system, and it's got dairy in it, it's got sugar in it, so you got 4 bad things in chocolate. Any food that makes you feel good is bad for you. Food is supposed to be good for you, not make you feel good. It's like heroin. Heroin will make you feel good, cocaine will make you feel good, alcohol will make you feel good, but it's all bad for you because it's creating an artificial state of feeling. Caffeine and sugar will do the same thing. Why do you think you crave certain foods? And why after about 3 or 4 hours not having that food, you start to feel irritable? It's because you're going through withdrawal. This is a milkshake. They tell us you never outgrow your need for dairy. Wrong. You never outgrow your need for calcium. Isn't it amazing? Common sense. One thing Americans do have, they don't always apply it. The 5 leading dairy consuming nations in the world, and the United States is one, England's one, France is one, we have the highest incidence of osteoporosis. Now, if it were true that dairy helped prevent osteoporosis by giving us calcium, then we shouldn't have any osteoporosis. But we have the most. The 5 nations that consume no dairy have no osteoporosis, statistically speaking. Like the Japanese. Japanese women, by the way, have 400% less breast cancer than we do. Well, you don't see them drinking milk. They drink soy milk. They eat sea vegetables. We don't eat sea vegetables, and that gives them calcium. You get 10 times more calcium in dry weight from a sea vegetable than you do from cow's milk with none of the allergens. We're swimming in a sea of allergens in our society, and that's unfortunate. Sodium in the diet. The average American consumes over 10,000 milligrams of sodium a day. Teenagers frequently have over 25,000 milligrams of sodium a day. A fast food meal right here, 5,000 milligrams of sodium. And we wonder why we have hypertension, kidney disease. Well, there's no mystery. Yet we were told, and we trusted, that if we ate the basic 4 food group, we would be well. That's the problem. Now, that's not the only problem. You do have a genetic predisposition. You do have an environment which causes pollution. We live in a very toxic sea with over 100,000 man-made chemicals. None of those have been tested to see if they're healthy for us. We swim in an ocean of hormones from pesticides, which can adversely affect whether or not you get cancer or not, and whether or not you get prostate enlargement and toxic cells. Now, to the degree that we can identify the toxins in our environment, we can eliminate them. So, stress, big killer, big ager. Bad diet, environment that's polluted, fluoride and chlorine in the water supply, really bad for you. So those are the major culprits. The first step in any anti-aging program is detoxification. Now, historically, when we mention detox, we think of, oh, gee whiz, you know, a drug addict detoxing or an alcoholic. No, this is not a Betty Ford detox. This is an anti-aging, cleansing, revitalization, rejuvenation program. You cannot be healthy taking some vitamins or something into your system at the same time taking garbage in. You can eat garbage and then take vitamin C, think you did yourself some good. No. This is not an instantaneous cure. This is not a magic panacea. You got to work at it. You worked hard at your career. You worked hard at your relationships. You worked hard raising your children. Why not work a little bit on your body? You're the one who benefits from all this, no one else. You're going to stay younger and healthier longer. I think that's a pretty good investment to make. I'm going to go through and show you how easy it is to be healthy and inexpensive. Remember, the key to anti-aging, the key to stress, de-stressing the body is revitalize, nurture, feed. If you are what you eat, why would you want to be a Twinkie? Why would you want to be a hot dog or a pizza? So we are going to be what we eat. We're also going to be what we think and believe in. But in this segment, here's the way you should start today, and we're going to start right away by de-aging. So here's how I would start the day. A fresh glass of juice. Now this is a glass of juice. This has chlorophyll. This has about 5 different vegetables. In fact, vegetables on this table. It has some collard greens, and it has some lettuce, it has some kale and broccoli in there, and some spinach. Now, if you want to change the taste, you could throw in some apples, some pears, and it would be terrific. So this juice cleanses, detoxifies. So if you and your children and the people who are over the age of 50, if you had 4 glasses of this juice a day, you'd eliminate most of the aging process. Now, what else detoxifies? Virtually everything here detoxifies. Brown rice instead of white rice. There are over 9 different types of rice. Fish, you want fish? Absolutely. Why? Because salmon, cod, herring, mackerel, sardines have fats in them that help protect your heart and your arteries and your skin and your brain. This is heart food right here. These are the foods that will help you rejuvenate. Cauliflower has got over 100 different phytochemicals in it. Cabbage, you want to help ulcers? You want to help gastrointestinal conditions? Cabbage. When was the last time you had cabbage juice? Juice the cabbage. Carrots. Carrots a lot of people don't eat because they say they're high in sugar. Compared to what? The sugar here has got a teaspoon of natural sugar compared to what? 39 teaspoons? Isn't it interesting? Stay away from those carrots, get too much sugar. But I'll go over here and have 40 teaspoons of sugar. We're very conservative when it comes to health, and we're very liberal when it comes to disease. We've got it opposite. We should be very liberal about health and very conservative about disease. We've got our beliefs upside down. That's the kind of way they play with our mind. Carrots, parsley. When was the last time you actually ate this on anyone's plate? If the average senior citizen was into rejuvenation, revitalization, repair, these little sprouts would be in their system. But most time it's on a plate as a garnish and it's taken off. You juice this and see what this does for your libido, for your skin, for your lungs, for your kidney. Yes. Sweet potatoes and tofu and lettuces and Swiss chard and squash. Squash has got a lot of calcium and magnesium in it. And cucumbers. By the way, cucumbers are a natural diuretic. It helps flush out toxins. It's a great liver flush, a kidney flush. And tomatoes. Tomatoes are rich in lycopene, anti-cancer. have tomato juice each day. Now, of course, all this food and eaten in proper amounts, not excessive, you're going to lose some weight. You're also going to exercise. You're going to gain the muscle mass, lose the fat, and you're going to cleanse the toxins out of the system. So it does make a difference what you eat. So right off the bat, the number one reason is we eat the wrong foods. It's not going to be simple for you to give up some of this stuff, but I got a way you can do it. I got a way you can do it, and it's easy. You can do this. I'll get to that in just a little bit. You're going to see in just a few moments how average people, just like you, took their lives and turned it around. And it wasn't hard. It's easy being healthy. It's hard being sick. It's easy reversing aging. It's hard to age prematurely. And you'll see how. I'd like for you to meet some of the people now who have turned their lives around and have helped others by an example. Hi. Come on down.
Hi, I'm George.
Hi. George.
I lost 40 pounds since April of last year. I walk, I run every day, I bike once a week. I feel happy, and I'm enjoying myself. I used to be sick all the time, taking off days and days of work. This year I've had 100% attendance at work.
100% attendance?
Yeah,
Did your mood change?
Absolutely. I let stress that used to bug me last year just fall right off my back, and I laugh about it.
See, now you can laugh at things that used to get bent out of shape.
Absolutely.
Do you believe in yourself?
Yes, I do.
Do you believe you have the power to change?
I'm changing it as we speak.
Good. All right, thank you.
Hi, Gary. In 1995, I was hospitalized with 3 bleeding ulcers, had 2 transfusions. Because I couldn't work, I listened to your show. I got into the weight loss program. I only lost 10 pounds, but I lost a lot in inches, you can see. But I have no more ulcers. It used to be an excruciating pain every time there was a change of season. And I used to bleed. And I didn't go to a doctor with it. I just thought I could handle it at home, and I never handled it correctly. But this is the first year that I have absolutely no pain, no bleeding. I have no more ulcers. I'm eating oranges, I'm squeezing lemons, and I feel great.
All right.
I'm Lorna. Since last August, I lost 50 pounds and counting. And I have no doubt in my mind, as I did from the day one of this program, that by next year, I'm going to be an athlete. I'm going to be, a slim little thing.
All right.
Yeah.
It came about because you just weren't heavy overnight.
No.
And what makes this program that you're on different than all the other programs you've done?
Well, I changed the way I've been eating. These are healthy choices. Before, I think I was doing it in order to lose weight. Now I'm doing it in order to be healthy.
Now I got a question. How healthy do you want to be? All right. Where I grew up, you were never given that option. However healthy you were, that's as healthy as you ever be. And I'll add one other thing. If you don't use the information that we have available, as of tomorrow, when you look in the mirror, that's as young or as healthy as you're ever going to be the rest of your life. But if you use this information, you can start reversing the aging process. You can get rid of wrinkles. You can grow hair new. Everything you thought was inevitable, it's not. I'd like to welcome you back. In this segment, we're going to talk about the mind, your mental condition, how to beat stress, rejuvenate your aging brain. We're going to discuss how the mind can make us ill, the real cause of disease, and how the mental state of Americans is the #1 killer. It's not a drug. It's not something within our environment. It's not just the diet. It's attitude. And questions to ask yourself about, are you willing and ready to make the changes you need? Now, when you talk about anti-aging, and that's what we're doing, reversing our aging process, getting younger, as some of you have done. For example, just a show of hands, how many people in here feel that after being on this program that we're asking people in this audience to try, that after a year you feel that when you look in the mirror you're actually seeing a younger face? Okay? All right, good. The average American is overweight. Almost 100 million Americans, 100 million, are chronically ill and out of shape. Why? Why? We walk around beating up on ourselves, and if we're not, someone else is emotionally, and we're under chronic stress. So now when you come to see me, I don't start with diet. I start with, let's get you in the right state of mind, because if you get in the right state of mind, then you'll stick with something, because you'll want to. Whose life are you living? When you wake up each day and you look in the mirror, who do you see? Someone who has mastered the art of living someone else's life? Who's worked hard? Who's been diligent? Who's been responsible for everyone else but not for themselves? Who feels guilty about taking any real attention to pay for themselves? Who would give all that they have to someone else but give almost nothing to themselves? Why? Well, we've got to get back to where we understand unconditional love of ourselves and start to really embrace what it is to redefine new goals no matter what age. Remember, your mind creates a thought. The thought that you think about then creates an emotion. The emotion becomes a feeling. Every single thought that you have, positive or negative, is instantly transformed into trillions of biochemical processes. Every single cell of your body becomes what you think. And we can actually map now over 17 biochemical steps going from a stressful thought to hurting your heart. We have what is called the stress hormone cascade. Cortisol and epinephrine and norepinephrine and adrenaline and catecholamines. You may not have heard of any of these, but these are the real causes of disease at the physical level, because once you think a stressful thought, an anxious thought, you're feeding the cell negative energy, you're feeding the cell biochemicals that are destructive, and quite simply, you create heart disease, cancer, arthritis by your thoughts. It's the #1 killer in America, our mind, but it's the #1 healer. Which do you want? It's a choice. Now, ask yourself, how would you evaluate your mental health? Are you overstressed? Do you respond poorly to stress? Do you stay positive, or do you immediately go to negative? Do you look at everything as being critical of you, or are you proud of what you have and what you've done? Do you feel that no matter what you do, it's never going to be good enough? Or is what you've done the best you can do and therefore you're happy with it? Think of it this way. If you were to die today and you were to be judged upon how you are today, would you feel that would be an honest legacy for your life? Or are we always planning for the future and forgetting about the present? Because we're always having the past chase us for things we never resolved in the past, so we're trying to resolve them in the future. So we have no present. If you want to de-stress, get into the present. Stress is not going to have the power to overwhelm you in the present. It's when you keep thinking about your unresolved conflict and your inferior sense of being, or all your insecurities and all that you thought you would have to overcome from your past, that you have no present, because everything you do is being judged. It's not your mind making these decisions. You know, the hard part of this is your thoughts are not your own. And almost never are thoughts real, because we react. We've been conditioned to react instead of reason. The mind that de-stresses itself is the mind that can quiet itself. A quieting mind is a healing mind. A busy mind has no time for healing. So we're constantly distracted by a world of hundreds of thousands of stimulations outside of us. We hate the idea of just being alone and being quiet. The average American might find 20 minutes a day of total quiet when they're in the bathroom. And that's about it. Because we have radios and TVs and telephones, and we're always busy. There are cultures, however, where that's different. Any of you ever been to Italy? To the countryside in Italy? It's interesting to watch this. These people just take their time, you know, and they take their time eating. They eat one dish at a time. Do you ever watch Italians eat? A great concept. You're given one plate, and you look at it and say, that's a small amount of food. And then they say, well, put your fork down in between each bite and let's talk. Well, Americans it's like an erector set. Their arm never stops. It's just like this, nonstop, you know, and sometimes big mouthfuls, right? You wonder, how can a person swallow that? The Italians just take their time. They have a glass of red wine, which has proanthocyanins, which protects the heart, anti-aging nutrients right in the wine. That's one of the reasons they live long lives. They're drinking red wine, has low alcohol content, it's good for them. And they're eating stuff that they grow themselves. Every single square foot has something growing. Herbs, they'll throw rosemary in. They'll throw dill and thyme in. They'll throw oregano, and garlic is in everything. That garlic helps prevent high blood pressure. Want to bring down your blood pressure, bring down your cholesterol, kill parasites? Garlic, onions, sauteed. So anyhow, I sit and I eat with these people. It takes 2 hours to eat a meal. Americans eat in about 5 minutes, right? Then they get indigestion. Then they're angry. They eat allergy-producing foods, constipated-producing foods, and they walk around just angry about everything. Did you notice how angry we are as a society? How can you de-age? How can you overcome disease and being angry about everything? Anger is a negative energy. Anger doesn't resolve conflict. Harmony and harmonizing does. These people have not forgotten the meaning and purpose of their life. We don't focus upon the essential qualities. We focus upon the non-essential. We've made the non-essential more important than the essential. Love, quality time, unconditional sharing, compassion, acceptance for one another, breaking down all these artificial barriers of wealth and privilege and race and class, and just looking at people as people. That has a lot to do with how we age or don't age, in disease or non-disease. These are simple lessons. You see, we try to think that because the question is complicated, the answer must be complicated. I've never had a complicated question that required a complicated answer. Simple answers. And stop making all these little things more important than what they are. They're little things. And by the way, what is a great way to de-stress? Exercise. That's a very important part. Exercise. Power walking is one good thing. Power walking, it's simple. You just go out each day and you just walk. Just simple walking, you just move your arms. By the way, most walking you don't move your arms. Heel, toe, and you just walk. I'm just going to walk around the stage. Here's normal walking. And all we're going to do is go from normal walking to power walking. We're going to relax our hips and we're going to move our arms. And you open your mouth and breathe and you lean about 5 degrees in. 5 degrees so that body momentum is carried. Now I can walk at a 6 minute per mile pace, which is a fast pace. I'm just doing real slow to show you. Now see, when you're moving your arms at right angles like this, you're exercising this whole upper body and chest and back, and that's good because it burns up all this fat in here. All right? And when you're striking out here, you're using your strongest muscle in the body, your gluteus, your butt. All right? So think of all the cellulite you have. De-aging. De-age your butt. Your rear end should be no bigger than mine. That's it. So, all right? And your waist is going to come in, your belly's going to flatten out. Men with those beer bellies, not good for the prostate. So we can get it flat. How? Because every time you take a step in power walking, you're exercising these muscles, you're de-aging them, all right? So your legs are strengthening. You're getting more stamina, endurance. You breathe with the mouth open, breathe deep, diaphragmatic breathing, nice and easy. And then what you do, you try to increase your pulse as you power walk, and you do this 5 days a week for 45 minutes. And what's nice is, women in particular, this forces calcium into your bones and helps prevent osteoporosis. This reverses that aging of the body. When human growth hormone, which decreases with aging, this ups it and increases it. So you create better mood. Why? Because exercising floods the brain with a hormone, a system of hormones. It is called the walking calm. 45 minutes of power walking creates brain hormones that relax you, the endorphins, for 6 hours. Changes your metabolism so you lose weight easier without dieting. Increases circulation so you have better circulation to your extremities. There are foods that will calm you and de-stress you. Which foods? Well, how about those that are rich in calcium, magnesium, such as oats, all right, very big. Your green vegetables, kale, broccoli, arugula, Swiss chard, watercress, collard greens, beet greens, carrots. These have nutrients that can calm the system. Calcium, magnesium are two of the best. But what else will calm you down? The supplements that will calm you down. You want to deal with depression? By the way, anyone in this room find that you have found yourself less stressed and less depression when you've been on this kind of program? Look at the hands. Look at the hands. Look at all these people. Remember, by de-stressing yourself, you're de-aging yourself. You're reversing the aging process of the brain. Now that means that you're rejuvenating yourself, because the more calm you are, the more rejuvenation is occurring, more cleansing is occurring, because the energy is then going into rejuvenating and cleansing and de-aging than in disease. Now, let's talk about rejuvenation of the brain. How are we going to rejuvenate that brain? How are we going to de-age your brain? You're 55, let's de-age your brain back to 30. Right off the bat, drink 1 gallon of water a day. Our brains dehydrate because we don't drink enough. Let's get the water back into the brain. Senior citizens in particular don't drink enough. Let's also include as a part of that our juices. Remember, the more healthy juices with all the live enzymes and nutrients, the healthier you're going to be. Now, what to eat to help the mind and emotions? Eat smaller meals. The whole grains. Mind you, we have grains people never eat. Quinoa, amaranth, teff, bulgur, buckwheat, oats, groats, rice, millet. Millet's a great alkalizing grain. It tastes good. And we don't eat these things. We eat the same limited diet. Let's put adventure, let's put passion back into our diet. And what are the nutrients that also help the brain? Vitamin C. Now, how many people in here, and let's go to some success stories, have overcome stress, depression, and rejuvenated their mind and memory using the program I'm talking about? One that's easy to do, that anybody can do, that's inexpensive, that can be applied. All right, let me just, come on up. Anyone else, just come over here and get in line, come over there and get in line. We want to hear your story.
Where do you begin? All I can say is I'm 73 and I feel like I have so many projects that I want to do, and now I can do them. Before I started this, they were just too much. I said, oh, I'll never get to it, I'll never get to it. Now I'm seeking new projects, and they're all coming to life because I see the negative in my life. What's negative in my life, I'm going back in and seeing the negativity, bringing it right up into full focus, and going in and touching and retouching the spots that I know are not right.
So you're detoxifying the negative emotions, replacing them with positive, life-affirming emotions. You can stay positive in a negative world. You can stay non-toxic around people who are toxic.
Exactly.
What diseases have you been able to overcome?
Well, the first one I overcame was I have a hiatic hernia. And they were giving me all these heavy medicines at the VA to stop it. And once I started this program, gone.
What else?
Another one I've overcome is my head. My brain. My brain was killing me because I was destroying myself by saying, I can't do this, I can't do this. And I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it.
So you've empowered yourself.
Through the juicing, through the concept of the greens. The thing that has made the biggest movement in my life is your greens, your grains and greens, and the green stuff.
Do you see now that you're actually are able to reverse your aging process?
Yes, I do. No question about it.
Okay, thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Hi.
My name is Peter, and I had terrible food allergies and chemical sensitivities all my life. And it got to the point where I didn't know what to do, and I heard that you were doing an allergy group, and I started doing the protocol, and I've just had tremendous benefits, and I have almost no allergies at all. I stay away from high gluten foods, but even if I have a little bit of them now, they're not the reaction I used to have. One of the really terrible reactions that I did have was that we have terrible depression. I had a lot of cerebral reactions, a lot of forgetfulness, problems with memory. No more. I don't get depressed like I used to get. I used to be so terribly depressed, like I couldn't get out of bed. I just wanted to curl up and just stay away from everybody. It was really a bad scene. And now I feel terrific.
No allergies, no depression?
None.
Good. Give me $1. I didn't charge anybody for that. Come on down. Thank you. Hi.
Hi. Well, a year and a half ago, I was using a breathing machine 4 times a day I was on 3 different inhalers, and I was on 3 different drugs for emphysema. And today, the only thing I'm on is your program, and I'm power walking 6 miles a day, and I feel about 20 years younger, and I'm 50 pounds less, and it goes on and on. Thank you.
Who else?
I'm an RN. I work nights. I have an alternating day-night schedule, and this is enough to throw everything off and cause depression. But at 55, I feel more energy than I had when I was 25. And in fact, I feel like I've tapped into ultimate energy. It just flows. And all I have to do is be there, unencumbered by negative lifestyle or negative diet, and just let it flow and direct it as I choose now, according to my nature and my passions and according to the need around me. I'm realizing my dream of helping in the world, and I have enough energy to do it. So I've never felt better.
Good. Thank you. So what have we learned? We have learned that we can de-age the mind by feeding it the right nutrients and feeding it the right thoughts, by reaffirming our right to love ourselves no matter who else doesn't love us, that we are the beginning and end of how we feel. It's up to us. We're our only problem and we're our only solution. It takes taking the time and commitment, a commitment that you count enough that you're going to reprioritize your time starting today, that now you're going to see that you have a choice in everything, and look at the results. Overcoming lifelong allergies and asthma, overcoming emphysema where he had to be on a respirator 3 to 4 times a day in medications, overcoming 90% occlusion of the arteries, overcoming hiatal hernia. And if these aren't enough, I have 700 other people who just finished a study of a year and a half doing just this same, reversing the aging process, simple changes. We like to think that, oh, gee whiz, it has to come from Harvard or MIT in a test tube where they genetically engineer something. Look, the only reason they're looking there is because that's where the money is. They like to think that the only way you can control aging is to have a proprietary drug. I say we don't need the drugs to control aging because we don't need the drug to affect how we feel, how we eat, and selections we make. For those of us who care about our health and don't want to get prematurely old and want to reverse the aging that has occurred because of faulty living, we now know it's about choices. And we know it's about commitment. How much of a commitment are we willing to make to ourselves? That may seem self-evident. Well, sure, we'll make a complete commitment. We don't want to get sick and age. Okay, but standing between you and ideal health is all of your values and your beliefs. And sometimes they don't reconcile with health. Sometimes they actually create disease, in which case you're going to have to identify those qualities and get them out of your life and replace them with life-affirming values. And that's what this segment's about. We've learned already that we have to make the right selection with foods, and we can't just have comfort foods. So we're detoxing, cleansing, rejuvenating, and rebuilding. We learned about rejuvenating the mind and the nutrients and how to de-stress and not let everything become a stress crisis. Looking at things in proper perspective. Are we living in the moment? Living in the moment means that you've created balance again. You're detoxifying your lifestyle. If you can't live in the moment, then wherever else you're living is toxic. If you can't honor your life, then whoever's life you are honoring is toxic. And all that's aging you prematurely. Learn how to make better judgments. And how do you make better judgments? Trust in your intuition. There's a reason we have intuition. We've been led to believe that only science can provide us the answers with life. That's wrong. Science can provide us with some answers, and science can improve the quality of our lives on many levels, but it cannot replace the essentialness of our spirit. That is something that is non-mechanistic, non-linear, non-Newtonian. That is something that is holistic. It is complete. All we have to do is go within. Why are baby boomers in particular in trouble? Because we've tried so hard to prove our value and worth. Whatever we had was never enough, and we didn't want to have just what our parents had because we didn't think they had enough. So we wanted to show everyone that we would be smarter, get more educated, make more money, buy better things, and be prouder of ourselves. Well, look at all the major diseases today. Look at how many families have kids that they bought all the right educational tools for, give them all the right classes in karate and dance and singing and ballet, and the kids are on drugs. The kids are alienated from their own parents. Because the one thing those baby boomers might have forgot along the way is nothing in the world replaces that little passage of time at each year of a child's life where the only thing that counts is you and your commitment to accepting the transition year to year of a child. The kid doesn't want the class, the kid wants us. How often are kids in classes because we force them in, because we want them to perform to honor our ego needs? That's a wrong thing. If you're sharing as a human being and not allowing, whether you're male or female, young or old, rich or poor, educated or not, and where you take out all artificial separation, you're dealing one human being to another, then think of all that you can share. Think of the richness of a life that can be taken back into the community. Think of all the people who could help counsel children who need that counseling today. Think of all the truants and delinquents. Think of the people on crack cocaine and alcohol. Think of the people that need counseling. Think of the people who needed someone there when they were making a transition and had no one there, made the wrong choices. It's not too late to change some of those choices. We are all different life energies. We're not all the same. We've been told that we all need the same amount of vitamins. We don't. We've been told we have the same lifestyle. We shouldn't. That if we all live in the same community and work at the same job, we should have all the same needs. We don't. Some of us are creative, and therefore our needs are different. We're more passionate about life and relationships and work. Some of us are more like worker ants. We're more productive at specific issues, and we don't want to see the big picture. Some people don't see the small issue, can't do details, but love big pictures. They're conceptualizers. Why can't we understand that we're each unique and honor our uniqueness instead of trying to fit our uniqueness into some standardized form and then wonder why we're always frustrated, working at jobs we feel frustrated by, underutilizing our potential as human beings? How many people underutilize themselves and then get angry, so they drink, or they take drugs, or they gamble? They do something destructive to take off the edge, so they sublimate. If we were a happy society, if we were spiritually connected, we wouldn't be rushing off all the time to do something destructive. I would suggest the following. I would suggest that we take time to decide, who are we really? Who are you really? What makes you different? What would you love to do? Now, I didn't say what can you do. You may be imperfectly trained to do something that you don't like doing. Right now in this moment, to stop and reverse your aging process, you have to decide who you want to be when you finally grow up. And how many times did you perfect someone else's life and now are angry because you got so successful, but there was no fulfillment? If there's no fulfillment in doing the little things, and you only think there's going to be fulfillment in the big things, you have bought into the wrong life energy. So honor who you are. I know friends of mine who are lawyers decided one day they didn't like being lawyers. One of them is an animal keeper and works in the children's zoo and is delighted, so happy. He's lost weight. He is detoxified. He sticks with a healthy relationship. Before he had multiple relationships, they were all toxic. He was toxic. Well, how do you expect not to infect everything you touch, including people, if you're not healthy and happy? So honor who you are. And how you do that is spending quality time alone, introspection through prayer, through meditation, through guided visualization, through affirmation. But decide that whatever you're thinking in your heart of hearts, that's the process you're going to follow. Start over. Who says that we can't change our lives? We can change our lives. There's no law that says you have to stick with a career because you were educated in it. No, change if it means change. Get out of unhealthy situations and start over. Now, as far as diet and juices and to help each of these groups, remember, we want to revitalize, rejuvenate, restore, and rebalance. And that's what we can do on this program by taking in every day 4 glasses of fresh organic vegetable and fruit juices. We know that these help rejuvenate, cleanse, and eliminate toxins and rebuild tissue. We know that we don't have to be eating all the food we're currently eating, but that means making a commitment to be 100% in control of our own life. And when you're in charge of your own life, you're not going to be eating garbage anymore. You're not going to want it. People say, Gary, aren't you tempted by a hamburger? Why should I be? Why can't I have a tofu burger or no burger and have something else? I eat different food every single day. Eating the way I eat is not boring. Eating the way you eat, that's boring. I mean, you have the same basic 5 foods just made in different ways every day. I eat different things every single day because I'm using everything in nature. When was the last time you had kohlrabi, rutabaga, parsnips, right? We don't even think about the foods, plantain, because they're not what we were conditioned to eat. Break the habit. We need to contribute to the community and to the world. We are in this moment. We have a lot of people suffering. There are over 60 million Americans under an income level that we would consider adequate to their needs. The 30 million Americans who will go to bed tonight without food. We as a society have to reaffirm our spiritual connection to those who are more needy. And it can't just be by a blind check off to a trust or some charity. Personally engage in helping people. If it's wintertime, go out there and buy 2 or 3 sleeping bags and give those to homeless people. It'll help them. Remember, no matter what age you are, you can do something to help others. There's a lot of success when we rejuvenate ourselves spiritually, and we can't leave that out of the equation. I said something earlier. I said that I used to counsel a lot of people and didn't find that there was a lot of benefit because I didn't counsel on the spiritual or emotional level. Now I do counsel on the spiritual and emotional level. Try to get people to reevaluate what their beliefs are. Are your beliefs toxic? Look, if your beliefs are toxic, what you do is going to be toxic. You're going to be toxic, even if you don't want to. You have to have the honesty to look at your values and beliefs and say, are these something I want to honor? Are these good? Or are they reactionary? Are they racist? Are they sexist? Are they biased? Do they exclude other people? In which case, they're not healthy. You don't have to be a shaman or a saint or a guru or anyone else to appreciate that we have a lot of room to grow with our spirit. Let's go out here and see how some of you all have changed and what you've done. Hi.
I'm 62 years young. I never felt younger or better. I can't remember how far back I felt. Even in my 20s, I was doing nicotine and caffeine and not eating right. Now I have what I love to call EE, endless energy. And it's just, I don't have to do anything about it. I just keep working your program. And it sounds silly, but it just feels good to feel good. It feels good to know that I am maximizing my chances to use my physical, mental, spiritual capacities to have optimal health all the time. Great things have happened to me physically. I used to get every year 2, 3, 4 nasty, draining, drippy, yucky colds. I hated them. They demoralized me. They took like 2 weeks, 3 weeks to go away. Last winter, not one cold didn't even come near me. And I'm just so pleased about that. I don't have to bother about colds anymore. And also I had like stabbing arthritic pains in my wrists and my hands, no more of those pains. But mainly, like I say, it just feels good to know that I'm on top of my life, I'm on top of my health, and that part of me that I know to be spiritual, that inner part of me just is kicking in now. Don't have to do any more about it, just stay healthy and happy. Thank you.
I'm a nutrition specialist, and I see thousands of people, especially the ones that have been doing this, who have been in the studies. And I'm a research bug, so when they would come with the studies, and I would see how wonderful they were behaving for different reasons, I would look into protocols to see what was going on, exactly what they were doing, and it's in the scientific literature. It's not something that's new. It's there for everyone to see. And what's exciting about it is there's one central theme to it all. And the theme is more energy, they're doing exercise, and what they're all saying is how easy it is to do. So their biological markers have changed. They have reversed the aging process. So it's just there for everyone to see, and it's just amazing. I mean, people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s are saying, I sleep less, I don't feel as if I'm my age, I feel 20. Well, I'm here to say that the good news is we can reverse it all. And I've seen it happen countless number of times. And the basic thing is change your diet, be more diligent in your exercise, and you all can do it. It's very doable. It's just a tremendous difference.
Is this your husband here?
This is my husband.
Buzz, what's changed in your life?
I've become a great athlete. I've done 10 marathons. I just signed up for my 11th one. I feel like I'm 25, and I'm raring to go. I have plenty of energy.
How old are you, Buzz?
63.
63. Have you won any races?
Yes.
How would you compare your body now to, let's say, when you were 40?
I used to be obese, believe it or not. I used to be over 200 pounds.
How much do you weigh now?
I weigh 160, and I've been 160 for the last 12 years. I haven't deviated a pound up or down.
And have you noticed the difference in your energy level?
Yes.
Your memory?
Memory's good, energy's good. I go all day long. I put in a lot of hours a day. I work 7 days a week.
Is this a hard program to follow?
No. You just
Do you
have
think
to...
the average American watching right now could say they could do this?
They can do it if they want to make the commitment. That's the whole thing.
I've had great success with my skin from your programs, Gary. I celebrated my 40th birthday about 3 weeks ago, and 20-year-old guys still ask me for my phone number. So I have no wrinkles, and it just feels great to have great skin through eating right and juicing every day.
Okay, thank you. You're the administrator of a nursing home.
Yes, my name is Tom Gallen. I work at Margaret Teach Nursing Home, Jamaica, New York.
A lot of people, myself included, don't like the way a lot of nursing homes are run. It's been a dumping ground for a lot of people's mothers and fathers. They no longer have productive and useful lives. They're treated, unfortunately, with psychoactive drugs when they're not psychotics. They're fed abysmal diets, and then there's no reason that they should be dying. Are you going to try to reverse this process by establishing protocols like the ones we discussed here, that if they can help these people overcome disease, why can't they help people in nursing homes?
Absolutely, but first I have to start with myself. Started with the detox program, started with my mind and my body and my spirit. Those are the most important things that I can do. Once I have completed myself, then I can start with my organization, with my staff, with the residents in nursing home. There is a future and a promise for the elderly in this country. This detoxification, going with vitamins, minerals, nutrients, exercise, and the spirit, very important, that this can be a reversal for aging, for disease that currently exists, and we can do it.
Good. I look forward to you being a part of that change.
Thank you so much, Barry.
I'll give this wager. Anyone who owns a nursing home out there, if you have the courage to take on a holistic protocol, I'll give you the protocol and I'll work with you, and let's watch within 1 year. You give 1/2 the people in your nursing home the protocol these people are going under, the people in this audience would use, and we'll see if we can't get those people out of the nursing home back into life again. Nursing homes shouldn't be the last stage before death. It should be a way of recuperating our energy, revitalizing, reversing, rejuvenating, and getting back into life, and that's what we can do. There's no... Is there a fountain of youth? Well, there's no magic panacea. It can't be done overnight. It does take a commitment. It does take wanting to love yourself enough that you're willing to make all the changes we've been talking about. Is it doable? You bet. These are just average, normal people from all walks of life. They have created a positive attitude, and they believe that their life is changing. It has changed from all kinds of illnesses. Why can't it change for you too? It's not complicated. You can do it. And I hope you do. Thank you all very much.
Welcome back, everyone. As I mentioned at the beginning of the program, if you were all on board at that time, the program today is going to be in 3 segments. The first segment was an introduction. That was a half hour. Then the 1 hour of this film, and that's because a lot of people listening do not have the hard science background. They're not going, the reality is, and I can tell you this from having counseled more than 70,000 people in my career, 90% of the people that I counsel will only do about 5% of what they need to do. That's not a judgment that's negative against them. It's merely a pragmatic reality check that we are so conditioned by our comforts, so conditioned by our behaviors and the society we live in, our family expectations, our religious expectations, cultural expectations, that we stay within a pretty narrow guideline. So if I give someone the perfect diet, they'll probably do about 10 items out of that diet. If I suggest an exercise program, they'll do only that which feels comfortable for them. So in effect, all of aging and all of its diseases and all of the beneficial things we can do are on a spectrum. So the spectrum starts at 0 and goes into a large arch. Now that arch is directly related to how many things in life you've been doing right or wrong, and that gets to the idea that we live our lives, for the most part, in intentional neglect. That's a term I coined 2 years ago to show why in the world are so many educated people, doctors, lawyers, engineers, scientists, Nobel Prize winners I've interviewed and have known, Linus Pauling, Carey Mullis, etc. Why are they so limited in the areas that they haven't specialized in? But they're certain, meaning they're certain that vaccines work, yet they've not done a single hour of research on the field. How do they know it works? And then you suddenly see a homemaker who has no background, let's say, for our argument's sake, in any of the medical sciences. It's just a loving and caring mother, and trust the medical paradigm, vaccinates the children, and sees that the children are receding back into autism, spectrum disorder, some other form of problem, and then begins to do research. You want to talk about something that really makes a difference. Watch what happens when you're digging for the truth and you have to dig right through corporate lies, professional institutional lies, media bias and lies, and you get to the truth and you think, why didn't I know this? Why didn't my doctor know this? Because I'm willing to say as a generalization that based upon the people I've interviewed, which is over at least 2,000 for all the 4 films I've done on vaccines, that the average person who has had to research, meaning was forced into intentional awareness, has more knowledge about the safety and efficacy of vaccines than any physician in the United States, including those in the field, because they could spend thousands and thousands of hours. And boy, that's their whole life now, because they want to know what went wrong and what can I do, especially if they have multiple children. And there are about 7 million of those parents currently in the United States. So because of crisis, they were forced into intentional awareness from intentional neglect, because if you stay in intentional neglect, you automatically are then faced with intentional ignorance, meaning you don't know what the truth is, so you assume that whatever information you're getting is right. And from intentional ignorance comes unintended consequences of disease, obesity, heart disease, the very things these people in this video were describing: losing weight, overcoming fatigue, overcoming all forms of illness. And why? Because they became intentionally aware. And that's because now they're focused, they're conscious. They're living in the moment, they're taking nothing for granted. So now I get to the hard part. Sharing insights and information. I'm not expecting everything to be done by everybody, but I'm going to give it all to you. What you choose to use from this is going to be up to you. Now, you can replay this and take more time and give yourself the opportunity to see what you find more important. I'm just going to give you all the facts now. And then the last segment will be addressing some of the individual needs. For example, let's now go to two areas that people are not aware of, and that is stem cell therapy and telomeres. I have a lot on that. First, on stem cells. I believe within the next 5 years, the science of stem cells will be so advanced that you'll be able to grow a new skin, and a youthful new skin. That you'll be able to have damaged organs repaired, and that you'll be able to hold the aging process and reverse it. I believe it's within 5 years based upon my research and speaking at conferences to people in the field doing the research. Now, it's a little technical, but at least I will let you know that stem cell research passed a critical landmark in 2008 with the discovery that one could turn back the clock on human skin cells, reverting them to a state resembling an embryonic stem cell. The discovery was made by researchers at the University of Wisconsin and Kyoto University and independently confirmed by scientists at HSCI, which widely hailed as the long-awaited advance needed to put an end to the ethical debate surrounding the field, since it does not require the destruction of human embryos. Now, there are basically two types of stem cells. The embryonic stem cells found in embryos have the potential to develop into any part of the body. As an embryo grows, most cells become specialized. This means, in lay language, they change into specific parts of the body, such as heart, muscle, red blood cells, liver cells, and that change is permanent. And then you have adult stem cells. That's an undifferentiated cell found in differentiated cell tissue. So if damage occurs in certain parts of the body, they repair it by developing into the specific type of cell required. They can also replicate to produce more cells as needed. And this happens naturally in some parts of the body. That's why the body is able to, with a lot of injuries, repair itself, get back to health. Now, the main types of adult stem cells, and I'm not going to go through all of them because I don't believe it's necessary, but you got your skin stem cells found in the basal level of epidermis, your epithelial stem cells found in the lining of digestive tract, your neural stem cells found in the brain, and the mesenchymal stem cells found in many different tissues, but mostly in bone marrow. That's where most of it's harvested. And the hematopoietic stem cells, which give rise to different kinds of blood cells. And then you have your skeletal stem cells, and these cells give rise to bone and cartilage from fetal and adult bone marrow. And then the adult stem cells have been identified in specific areas of organ tissue known as stem cell niches, such as your brain, your bone marrow, your peripheral blood, your skeletal, skin, teeth, gut, liver, ovarian, epithelium, and testes. And only very recently were stem cells discovered in heart tissue, but there remains doubt. Scientists have to generate healthy heart muscle cells in the laboratory and then transplant those cells into patients with chronic heart disease to see if it works. And most of the adult stem cells are harvested from bone marrow, umbilical cord blood, and fat tissue. In stem cell therapy using transdifferentiation, this is the reprogramming of adult cell types into other cells in vivo using genetic modification or introducing genes. So that's what's going on out there. Now, here's what the good news is. The greatest potential in the future and success of stem cell therapy is in the generation of cells and tissues. So are stem cell therapy on track? Yeah, they are. They're treating over 90 medical conditions and diseases: macular degeneration, acute and chronic leukemias, anemias, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, many disorders caused by the absence or malfunctioning of a particular enzyme, like Hurler syndrome, and inherited red blood cell abnormalities, inherited immune system disorders, spinal cord injuries, stroke, damaged heart tissue, severe burn wounds, diabetes. Good progress is using cell culture to form insulin-producing cells that can eventually be transplanted into persons with diabetes, osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, sickle cell anemia, and cancers, including multiple myeloma cancer, breast cancer, Ewing sarcoma, neuroblastoma, and kidney cancers. And stem cell therapy using transdifferentiation is the reprogramming of the adult cell into the type of cells in vivo using genetic modification. But not all stem cell research is safe. An example, University of Wisconsin-Keota discovered that you can turn back the clock on human skin cells and revert them to a state resembling embryonic cells with use of reprogrammed stem cells. And this method introduces 4 new genes that act as master switches into the skin cell line, but one was a oncogene. Also, there's potential problematic because these genes were delivered into the cells using retroviruses. So understand what I'm saying. What I'm saying is right now there is cell therapy that can make a difference, generally using either fat cells or taking cells out of bone marrow, and that can cause a lot of different conditions in the body to be rejuvenated. But we have not perfected yet the being able to replace or rejuvenate organs and knowing there will be no toxic side effects. You have to be very patient with this, because the last thing you want is to have any new therapy that seems promising and something goes wrong. And now your whole biochemistry is out of whack because they didn't count on something. And that's why we're seeing so many dangers with vaccines. They've never done a single long-term study with a double-blind placebo-controlled trial and the placebo being a saline solution. They've never taken, for example, one group of children and fed them a very healthy diet with lots of supplements, let's say 5,000 children. One giving them their standard vaccines, and another group giving them the standard vaccines but as a placebo. And then every 6 months getting the indices of health reports to see which group is healthier, which are coming down with illnesses, how severe are these illnesses, and then at the end of 5 years, did they work or not work, and then have a, let's say, meta-analysis of an epidemiological review to say this does or doesn't work based upon an analysis of the methods used. That has never been done. Never. Well, how in the world can any reasonable person say that vaccines are safe when the basic gold standard has never been met? They've been using adjuvants like aluminum in placebos. Well, we know that aluminum in every single toxicological report on neurons is neurotoxic. It's toxic to the brain. So it's just a massive fraud, massive. In time, this will be exposed as the largest public health fraud in history, purely for the greed of manufacturers and protected by the agencies they control. Now, I tell you this simply because some people rush off to Mexico or other places to get stem cell therapy without being aware that you can't verify that those studies are true or even were done. And I've seen too many people go to places to get therapies and they didn't work. But there are foods that will stimulate the body's own natural stem cells. In fact, one of the best therapies in the world to help men who have erectile dysfunction, there's 2 therapies. And one is where they will take, PRP, they'll take about 30 cc's of your blood out in a single syringe. And then it takes about 20 minutes. They spin that down and separate off your plasma. And then they re-inject in about, I think it's 4 to 6 places in the penis, and they're putting new stem cells in there, or your stem cells. And in a lot of people, that will cause a whole rejuvenation in new blood vessels. And then on top of that, they have this machine. I don't know what it's called. I'll find out. But it's like a little vibrating. I think it's 1,400 vibrations, and they run that around all the veins and around the base between the anus and the scrotum, and up and down the penis, and that breaks open all those occluded arteries and veins that have been blocked. Because a lot of erectile dysfunction comes because of a person's bad diet, and the veins that are fed into the penis are no different than veins in one regard that are fed into other parts of the body. You haven't paid attention. You ride a bike that will cause this collapse of these veins. So you need blood to engorge in there, and the blood engorging in needs nitric oxide, and beet juice gives you that. And then choline from the brain is the stimulant that will help create an arousal. So between L-arginine and beet juice and choline, and during this therapy, a lot of men now don't have to worry about taking any of the pills that otherwise they would be taking, which has side effects. But that's therapy that's being used, and at the base of that therapy is your own stem cells. And they're also doing that across your face. One of the ways you can make a face look much younger, and this is relatively new, is they will, again, take the same blood, spin it down, and then they massage this into your face, all over your face. And then they have this little apparatus that has multiple needles in it, little tiny, tiny needles. And then it vibrates, and it makes just little breaks of the skin. But then when they're massaging your serum with your stem cells is going in and causing new collagen, new elastin, and it could take anywhere from 6 months to a year to see the full effects. And they say between 3 and 6 treatments, in effect, you can knock years off your aging. And it's natural. It's your own body's fluids that you're putting back into your body in ways that we hadn't thought before. So that's also something that can help a lot of people. But then I want people to know that when stem cells are shown to be really safe, and in time I believe they will, or at least those that can be proven safe and effective, that'll be one of the most important things we could ever have. But in the interim, there are things we should be doing right now, today, that can make a note. And these are things that can enhance our lifespan, and these are called telomeres. Telemeres, telomeres. And these are the end caps of the chromosomes. Like a shoestring with that little plastic at the end of the shoestring keeps it from unraveling. That's your telomeres. So anything you do that I'm going to tell you what to do in a moment that allows the telomeres to stay on longer, to live longer, the longer you live. But when you do things you shouldn't do, it causes them to shorten and to speed up their division, and that's not good. So I'll give you an idea how you can create more active stem cells in your body and how you can create longer-lasting telomeres. But I want to give you a few facts, because these facts are important. But right now, for 2 years in a row, American life expectancy has declined. It's dropped. 76 years for men, 81 years for women. The lowest lifespan in the United States is Stillwell, Oklahoma. It's 56 years. The longest is in Chatham, North Carolina. It's 97 years. Largely due to about 72% increase in drug overdoses and 23% in suicide. So a lot of people are killing themselves accidentally or by intent. And that's another issue that I'll deal with. And also, older adults are finding it more difficult to survive. And there seems to be a terminal decline that we're not faced with. And so their death is speeding up. A lot of them are taking their own lives. Now, when you look at other countries, for example, in 2018, the U.S. ranked 47th And for women, it was 39th, and that's terrible. With all we do, we should be number one, and we're not. In fact, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, they all averaged 80 years. But if you want to know where in the world people are living the longest, and I believe that's important, because a lot of people, look, you don't have to be any place the rest of your life. Just remember that. Write that down and keep reminding yourself. You don't have to be any place the rest of your life. No one is forcing you to live in one place. We make choices, and there are consequences to every choice we make. So if I know that I don't want to live in a place that's no longer environmentally sustainable, I'll move to a place that is. If that means I have to uproot and get away from people and places that are comfortable for me, so be it. I'll go through that discomfort. Just imagine, and this actually happened, a guy who was in my health support group about 10 years ago. And for the first 2 months, I don't even discuss nutrition. I discuss behavior. Because what's the point of giving people all the right diet information if they don't have the behavior in place to honor it and be disciplined enough to make the changes? It's just waste. So I reversed how I teach, and now it's much more likely that people are going to do something when you have the quality time to work with them on why you're resisting. Why are you going to make this change? Well, because my mom's sick and I'm limited and and I don't have the money and blah, blah, and suddenly it's all these whole series of crisis and dramas. We're flooding ourselves with crisis and dramas. And that means we can't do anything right now, but we're hopeful in time. And then you start seeing, well, you've been in crisis and drama the last 20, 30 years. You're never going to get out of it. The excuse you use so you don't have to change. So the big game is people play it on themselves. My goal is to try to get you to realize you can be any place you want to be if you're willing to make the changes. For example, the first place in the world is Monaco. They live almost 90. And then Japan is second. Singapore is third. Their average lifespan is 85 and 85. Macau is nearly 85. San Marino is 83. Andorra is 83. Guernsey is 82, Hong Kong is 82, Australia is 82, Italy is 82, Canada is 82. Yeah. So you got to know that you may be living in the place that's contributing to your disease and hence to your premature aging. Now, diseases also speed up the death process. The top 10 diseases in the United States as a cause of death are coronary heart disease, cancer, chronic lower respiratory disease, stroke, Alzheimer's, diabetes, pneumonia, kidney disease, septicemia, and chronic liver disease and cirrhosis. And that's pretty much the same worldwide, except worldwide you also have dehydration due to diarrheal diseases and tuberculosis, but the others are pretty close. We also find that we die if we don't have enough nutrients, if we're nutrient deficient. In fact, 300 million people have life expectancies under 60 because of nutrient deficiencies. And then we have genetic mutations. In a typical day, 37 trillion cells in your body will accumulate trillions of new mutations, according to Johns Hopkins. And the Sanger Institute says that our cells continue to accumulate mutations over a lifetime. And a typical blood cell from a 100-year-old person contains 4,000 single-letter mutations and hundreds of other kinds of mutations per cell. And the University of Virginia has a study that a person can have up to 2,000 mutations per brain cell during the course of a lifetime. In Albert Einstein College of Medicine, a cancer cell needs to override the natural limit on how many times a cell can divide. It needs to escape programmed cell death, or the cell's tendency to self-destruct when something goes wrong, and it needs to evade an immune system that is constantly on the lookout for aberrant cells. And then comes the telomeres. Telomeres counteract telomere shortening. telomerase. It's an enzyme named telomerase as basis to the enzyme telomeres. So the lesson, you need more telomerase. In young cells, telomerase keeps telomeres from wearing down too much. But as cells divide repeatedly, and when they have all these mutations, when you have up to 10,000 cell mutations per day per cell, then it's a losing battle. There's not enough telomerase, so the telomeres grow shorter and the cells age, and you die sooner. Telomere shortening seems to be faster in men than women, and oxidative stress is repaired less well in telomere DNA than it is in chromosomes. So shorter telomeres are associated with a broad range of age-related disease: cancer, stroke, vascular dementia, cardiovascular, obesity, osteoporosis, and diabetes. That's what you get when your telomeres are shortening. So what speeds up the telomere shortening? What speeds up causing us to die quicker? Well, Kaiser Permanente, study with over 100,000 participants, provided saliva examples, and the study found that individuals with the shortest telomeres were 23% more likely to die within 3 years than those with longer. So write these down. Now you're on your own, and I'm going to give you more than what you're going to be able to process, but even if you only use 10% of what I'm going to give you, it's going to make a big difference. First and foremost, workplace stress. Many studies, so write it down, workplace stress, and be honest. Stop bullshitting. Be honest. Stop adapting to people who are not nice and not kind and not funny and not joyful. Don't be around people who are always hypercritical, because those are the people that create stress. Trying to always catch up, having more work than you can do, always having deadlines. These are killing you. Many studies have shown a link between chronic stress in the workplace and a degradation in health. On average, there is a 550 base pair difference in telomere sequence length, no matter the chronological age of the subject, between the subjects undergoing high levels of stress and those with low levels of stress in the workplace. In the high-level stress group, telomerase activity is 48% lower. Let me repeat that. In a high-stress environment, home or work, in a relationship, telomerase, that's the enzyme you need, it's 40% lower than if you're in a low-stress environment. What does that mean? Again, this is a spectrum, but it can go up to 10 years in increasing your biological age. So if you're in a stressful relationship, if you're in a stressful work environment, add 10 years onto your biological age. So if you're 70, you're now 80. If you're 50, no, you're 60. All right, so we got that. You all clear on that? Now this next one is excess weight and obesity. Telomeres of overweight women were 240 base pairs shorter than in those with a regular body mass, meaning they didn't have the same amount of body fat. This difference in telomere length represents approximately, ready, 8.8 years, increasing your physiological age. That's not a good thing. Let me repeat that so you understand what I'm saying. If you're overweight, you're going to die sooner by almost 8.8 years because it's speeding up your age. So if you're 60, no, you're 68.8, just based on that. Okay. Now remember, all of these are cumulative. I repeat, everything I'm giving you is cumulative. So you have to add up all these, and you have to see, well, how much stress and how much overweight and how long have you been overweight. The longer you're overweight and the more belly fat you have or hip fat you have or thigh fat you have, the more that 8.8 years added to your biological age, or that 10 years added to your biological age if you're in a stressful home or work environment. But what the heck happens if you're both stressed at work and at home? Well, then you're kind of really you're double down negative. This is where you got to have the courage to change, even if you got to tell people, I'm sorry, I don't want to be in this relationship anymore, and I don't want you to change because, A, you're going to be angry if you had to change, so you're not really going to change, and I'm sick of adapting to your moods, and whether it's a man to a woman or a woman to a man or any thereafter type of person. Don't have negative people in your life. Jesus, can't you get that? I know, but, obligations and conditioning, and we've been married 32 years, and we got to prove to the kids that we're together. Bullshit. Nonsense. You don't have to prove anything to anybody. Get over this idea that anybody has any chain around your neck. You're no one's dog to be led around, and then someone yell at you like they have an unconditional contract that they can be mean to you, they can be vulgar to you, they can be uncomplimentary. No. I have a basic rule. If you're not positive, I don't want you in my life under any circumstances. I don't care what you would do in my life that would make a positive input. If you're negative, you don't get in. How about that? Hard ass, you bet. Because I value my life more than I do any relationship that's going to be dysfunctional, which most are. We've gotten this whole wrong idea about relationships. God, have we gotten it wrong. We've done everything you could do wrong, been told the wrong information by Tony Robbins and all these other people, in my opinion, just misinformation. You're much better off being happy as an individual with happy friendships unless you have that relationship where there is no hassle, where you don't have to change to meet someone's need. They don't have to change to meet yours. You don't have to think for two people every time you make a decision. You just harmonize the best you are. Now, that's a good relationship. And if you're lucky enough and blessed enough to have that, great for you. Because later I'll show you that'll add years to your life, but most people don't have that. Now, we have smoking. Now, some of you have never smoked. Good. Many of you have smoked. Many of you smoked and stopped smoking. Well, here's the good news, bad news. In a smokers group each year saw a loss of an extra 5 base pair of telomeric DNA, meaning your telomeres start to unravel more and more every year, which amounts to 18% more of a loss than in non-smokers. This gives you a loss of 4.6 years of biological age for smokers and 7.4 for those who smoke 1 pack a day over their adult life. Now, I'm going to show you later how you can repair a lot of the damage. I'm only giving you what is causing you to speed up your aging process, and with that, the disease process. Because if you're smoking, you're going to have COPD, heart disease, stroke, all these other factors are going to come in there and make a difference. Then we have psychological factors. Depression is not something that simply affects the brain. Depression affects the whole body. Chronic depression reduces telomerase activity and decreases levels of neurotropic factors, but increases apoptosis and reduces stem cell proliferation or programmed cell death. University of California, San Francisco reported that the biological age of patients with depression was 10 years older compared to their chronological age. So again, you're 70 and you're depressed, you're 80, depending upon how long you've been depressed and whether you're functionally depressed, meaning you can still function but always in a dark mood. Then we have, and by the way, the same thing applies to also pessimism. Yeah. Pessimistic people were independently associated with shorter leukocyte telomere length and higher levels of interleukin-6, meaning inflammatory cytokines. Socioeconomic status, meaning if you're challenged financially, telomere length vary greatly, but was significantly shorter in subjects with low socioeconomic status. Now, we have over 150 million Americans who are living just above, at, or below the poverty line. They're struggling. Over 103 million Americans who work full-time are now not working or working only part-time, and they're not even a part of the unemployment level. So that's a big deal. So subjects doing manual labor showed 163 base pair less on their telomeres than those with desk jobs. This represents about 8 times the average quantity of telomere sequencing lost every year. That's a lot. So if you're a poor person and you're a poor person doing some manual work, a lot of physical work, you're shortening your life, but we don't know by how much. Now, here are some things that we can do to lengthen our telomeres and live a longer life. Reduce chronic stress. University of California, San Francisco found men that after 3 months on a vegan diet and aerobic exercise and meditation or yoga, there was an increase in telomerase activity. So a plant-based diet, 1, meaning a vegan diet, a healthy vegan diet, lots of vegetables and fruits and grains and nuts and seeds, and I'll get into that later. Exercising at least an hour a day, aerobically and with some intensity in there, and then cross-training your muscles with resistance, strength. And then time for prayer, relaxation, music, meditation, yoga. All that is adding years to your life. And by the way, exercise is particularly important. A study found that a person who did some type of exercise was about 3% less likely to have super short telomeres than a person who didn't exercise at all. And regular middle-aged adults, we're talking those who could do 45 to 50 miles a week had telomere lengths on average 75% longer than sedentary people. So getting out there and doing, let's say, an hour a day, 6 days a week, you're putting a lot of telomeres to work. And as far as meditation, University of Zaragoza in Spain, Zen Buddhist meditators had significantly longer telomeres, and evidence meditation increases telomerase. A Harvard study lessens hyperfunction of the amygdala and therefore reduces stress and anxiety. And UCLA, increased gray volume of the brain when you meditate. University of Calgary, meditation protected the telomere length in breast cancer patients. And the Maharishi University and the University of Iowa, long-term meditation, meaning 7 years or more, were 23% less likely to die from any cause during that period and 30% less likely to die of cardiovascular disease during the same period. That's a big, big benefit. Then we also have nature and forest bathing. Japan just spent over $4 million to study physiological and psychological effects of forest bathing. Nippon Medical School in Tokyo increases activity of human natural killer cells and T cells, strengthening the immune system and has a positive effect on your whole body, lasting at least a month. And Chiba University, lower concentrations of cortisol, your stress hormone, and lower pulse rate and lower blood pressure, and greater parasympathetic nerve activity and lower sympathetic nerve activity than city environments. So getting into nature, being around trees and shrubs and lakes and walking on the beach, that's called nature forest bathing. And it's really good for you. And the top antioxidant foods would be dark chocolate that has 80,000 ORAC, or antioxidant score, small red beans, nice to have those in the salad, blueberries, kidney beans, pinto beans, cranberries, artichoke, blackberries, goji berries, prunes, raspberries, strawberries, walnuts, red delicious apples, Granny Smith apples, pecans, sweet cherries, black plums, russet potatoes, black beans, kale, beets, and spinach. I know you can't write that fast. I'm going to do it again. Dark chocolate, red beans, blueberries, kidney beans, pinto beans, cranberries, artichokes, blackberries, goji berries, prunes, raspberries, strawberries, walnuts, red delicious apples, Granny Smith apples, pecans, sweet cherries, black plum, russet potatoes, black beans, kale, beets, and spinach. All great on a vegan diet. Just lots of beans. Just remember this. Every day, what if you had for a week, you had a different bean? Monday, you got the pinto bean. Tuesday, you got the you got your red beans. Wednesday, you had the black soybeans. Every day, a different bean. And then different fruits. In fact, University of Oslo ranked total antioxidant content over 3,100 foods and spices and herbs and supplements. And green tea was high, and grape juice was high. And dog rose, that's DOGROSE, was way ahead of any other berry or fruit. And, of course, you don't want the meats because the meats are very low in antioxidant value. And the top antioxidant vitamins were vitamin C, vitamin E, beta-carotene, lutein, Lutein, zeaxanthin, Zeaxanthin, lycopene, Lycopene, quercetin, Quercetin, resveratrol, Resveratrol, and glutathione. Vitamin C, vitamin E, beta-carotene, lutein, zeaxanthin, lycopene, quercetin, resveratrol, and glutathione. The top herbs with the highest ORAC score: cloves, number 1, mint leaves, cinnamon, oregano, turmeric, cacao, which is chocolate, parsley, basil, ginger. All right, again, that's cloves, mint leaves, cinnamon, oregano, turmeric, cacao, parsley, basil, ginger, and thyme. And then also right up there is going to be garlic and cayenne and onions. Now, nutrient deficiencies can contribute to disease. The nutrients that are very common are vitamin D deficiency. In fact, vitamin D deficient women have a 253% increased risk of colon cancer and a 222% increased risk of breast cancer. And men with vitamin D have 52% reduced risk of prostate cancer, or increased risk, and also an 86% increased risk in fatal strokes. And 85% of the American population is vitamin D deficient. 97% of the Canadian population is vitamin D deficient. But there are other problems: vitamin A, B12, vitamin C. 21 million Americans are seriously deficient in vitamin C. Vitamin E, magnesium, calcium, iodine, zinc, fatty acids, omega-3 fatty acids. 90% of Americans are deficient in the fatty acids and selenium. Also protein. Meat eaters get way more protein than what they need, but so do about 70% of vegetarians eat more than what they need. But 97% of all Americans are deficient in fiber. They average only 15 grams a day. You need a minimum of 35, ideally 50 a day. So 96% of Americans don't eat minimum daily beans. 96% of Americans don't eat greens. 99% of Americans don't eat whole grains. So the things I just mentioned, I'm sure many of you already do consume, is showing you what is important. Mental factors: depression, emotional stress, financial stress, anticipation of stress to actual emotional stress, And the Veteran Administration study of 5 million patient records looking at the loss of years for depression. Wow, you lose 13 years of productive life. A big increase in the causes of death, cerebrovascular issues, diabetes, and heart disease. Illnesses associated, I've mentioned, and anxiety, chronic exposure, physiological, psychological anxiety stressors, especially if people are overweight. You have metabolic syndrome, cardiovascular disease, dendritic shortening in hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, meaning your brain is aging way too fast. In fact, the Virginia University Medical Center average lifespan shortened by 5 years of chronic anxiety. Average anxiety is alleviated, telomere length returned to almost the exact level before, so you can reverse that. And Brigham and Women's Hospital studies showed similar results to stress with phobic anxiety. Present cardiovascular risks, 10 to 15 years shorter life expectancy from age 50. Diabetes, 20-year loss of life average. Rheumatoid arthritis, 10 to 15 years loss of life. What if you have cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and arthritis? Well, you're lucky to be alive. Sleep, insomnia throws the hormones out of whack, and especially cortisol and insulin and ghrelin, which is the hormone that makes us hungry. About half of all adults over the age of 65 have some sort of sleep problems. And so I'll get to what you should be doing, but people who get roughly 7 hours of sleep a night have longer telomere than people got 5 or less hours. You need sleep because you increase your risk of cardiovascular disease by 200% if you're only sleeping 5 hours a night. Insomnia and sleep disturbances really affects your memory. And 90% of people with insomnia have other health problems. If you have sleep disorders and chronic sleep loss, heart disease, heart attacks, heart failure, regular heartbeat, high blood pressure, stroke, decline in memory, diabetes, Alzheimer's, loss of libido. If you're overweight, according to Georgia Institute for Global Health and University of Sydney, you can lose 10 years of life. An average woman loses 6 years and a man loses 8. Men and women in their 40s lose 4 to 5 years of their life. Oxford University, if you're even moderately overweight, 3 years you lost. But if you're really severely obese, 10 years off your life. And you're more likely to have heart disease, stroke, high blood pressure, diabetes, and cancers, osteoarthritis, and breathing problems. If you don't do enough exercise, you can take 2 to 3.5 years off your life. Even moderate exercise can add 7 years to your life. So, alcohol also, wow. Alcohol is responsible for 1 in 10 deaths among working-age adults 20 to 64. And University of Cambridge study drinking 5 to 10 pints of just beer or glasses of wine regularly. At age 40, life expectancy falls by 6 months. Drinking a little more, it can fall up to 1 to 2 years. And if you drink regularly, you can lose 4 to 5 years of life. According to the University of Sheffield, an average American sits 11 hours a day. And that is responsible for about 300,000 deaths annually from inactivity. 20% of all deaths of people 35 years plus attributed to lack of activity. In the University of Sydney, for people 45 sitting 11 hours a day, 40% increase in death compared to those who sit less than 4 hours a day. So we shouldn't be sitting. If you're at a desk for more than, let's say, 2 hours, get up and walk around, do some deep knee bends. illnesses, according to University of California, San Diego, overly sedentary, 1 to 8 years. Then you've got obesity, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, stroke, metabolic syndrome, diabetes, and depression. But loneliness is also a killer. Developing strong and frequent social relationships, having good friendships, lowers our death rate, allows us quality life. And also environmental factors. We live in the places that are polluted. And coal is responsible for 800,000 premature deaths globally. But we live around places that could be polluted, and we're not looking at air particulate pollution. It is serious, and it's a killer. It aggravates cardiovascular and respiratory illnesses, damages cells in the respiratory system, and electromagnetic frequency radiation, cell phones, computers, blue lights, and now the 5G. I would not live in a building that had 5G on it and smart meters. Protein changes in the skin from stress reactions, that's a new scientist, interference in melatonin production and possible serotonin, excitation of the cells in the brain cortex, neuron damage in the cortex and hippocampus and the basal ganglia, and DNA damage, genetic breaks that could not be repaired and therefore were predisposed to cancer, increased blood pressure, fertility problems, and alteration of your gut microbiome. All that from being around cell phones and computers and other sources of electromagnetic frequency. And then, of course, you have poverty that I mentioned. And then chlorine gas every time you take that shower. Unless you put a water filter on that blocks the chlorine, chlorinated water alters and destroys unsaturated essential fatty acids. A Belgian study shows the development of deadly malignant melanoma when people are drinking chlorinated water. In fact, a study of women who drank more than 5 glasses a day of tap water containing about 75 parts per billion of THMs had a 9.5% risk of spontaneous abortions and miscarriages. So filter your water and don't have fluoride, and chelate naturally to get those heavy metals out of the body. Otherwise, you can end up with yeast infections and all forms of problems. So you want to add more years to your life? Okay. Exercise, cardio exercise every day, vegan-based, heavy on the vegan diet. Keep your body fat down, no smoking, no drinking. Rigorous exercise, maintain a lower blood pressure, maintain low cholesterol, have a positive outlook on life, reduce the risk of diseases, and be more socially active. So all of these contribute to your lifespan. For example, just rigorous weekly exercise adds 9 years. No drinking adds 14 years. Low blood pressure adds 4 years. Maintaining low cholesterol adds 4 years. Positive outlook adds 4 years. So right there, if you just did those things, you've added a lot of time, and a vegan diet could add as many as up to 9 years, depending upon the quality of the diet, and if it's got super potent nutrients, because I'm not even talking about the high-level nutrients that we should have in our body. Also, we want to understand that because we're exposed to pollutants and noise and stress and contamination, this causes our body to have these DNA alterations. So now I'm going to go to something relatively simple to understand. Let's just say that you have and this is actually an actual study, let's say that we have 10,000 alterations per gene, and you've got, for argument's sake, 75 trillion genes. So 75 trillion times 10,000. The body, when it's younger, can repair a lot of this. As it gets over the age of 40, it can't so easily. And the older we get, the less these genes are going to be repaired, and then those genes become the process that we call disease. So if I went on a plant-based diet and I exercised daily, and I took all of the nutrients I need to take, and I juiced at least 4 glasses of fresh juice a day, and I took healthy probiotics, about 5 to 10 billion good probiotics per day, and I reduced stress with meditation or journal writing or things, or saw comedies, and I had a good social network, and I engaged in things that were meaningful to my life, other than just making a living and going through routines. Right there, I've reduced those 10,000 gene alterations to about 2,000. That means 80% of the damage that would be done to my cells are not being done now because I'm doing something constructive in their place. And that's important. Do something good. So now I'm taking something that would be bad, sedentary activity, alcohol, smoking, stress, loneliness, being in a polluted environment, sitting too long, having a cell phone, a computer on all the time, and challenged for money, and then drinking tap water and having my body toxic. And I've turned all that around. I've turned it around. Simple, all right? So let's just quickly add up just some of the numbers, not even all. No drinking, 14 years. Exercising vigorously, 9 years. Let's just say a regular low blood pressure, 4 years. Low cholesterol, 4 years. Positive outlook on life, happy disposition, 4 years. And then take all my nutrients that I need, at least, I would say 5 years. Right there, I've added 40 years onto my lifespan. So let's just say that the average lifespan is 78. Now, we don't start off at that because we have a lot of stuff we have to undo. But we have a lot of positive years that we could add on to our lives. That's why in the film you saw people who had been on a 1-year program that had them on saying that this is the best he's felt at 60. Well, what was he doing? Because he was making all kinds of mistakes earlier in his life. And when you're making a lot of mistakes, maybe you're overweight. You heard the one guy say he was 50 pounds overweight. That takes off 10 years. Then he was depressed. That takes off 13 years. Then he was obese. That can take off 5 to 9 years, so let's say 7 years. Then he suffered from anxiety because he was overweight, had low self-esteem, and was depressed. That takes off 5 years. He was under chronic work stress. That's 10 years off your life. He drank. That was 5 years off his life. And he was in not a good position as far as finances. That's 10 years. I'm not even talking about nighttime work, which can take 10 years off your life. And he didn't do exercise. That takes 7 years off your life. And then he had diseases like diabetes that can take 20 years off your life. So at 45, he was already near his death date. That's why when you have averages, you take people with very long lives and very short lives, and you average them. Well, he was able to undo all that damage, or a lot of it. So he could legitimately say, I've lost all this weight, I have a positive disposition, I'm exercising, I've never felt better. And he could be absolutely right. He's never felt better because only now is he putting it all together for himself. So you see, these are the numbers. And again, there's no hard and fixed number. You're going to have to sit and analyze, are you a happy person or not? Are you in a quality relationship or not? Do you have a good work environment or not? Are you overstressed? Do you have too many things? Are you too responsible? Because all that's going to take years off your life. The takeaway message from all this is when you can drop all the balls in your life and only pick those ones back up that you truly want to work with, will you get this? When you realize that I can make a few little changes, but then that's not going to do a whole lot of good, or I can make a lot of changes. Now, if I make a lot of changes, then it could do a lot of good. Okay, then how many changes do you want to make? Because your change is going to be directly proportional to your comfort level and your conditioning. So if you don't want to make a lot of changes, you're not going to undo a lot of damage. The more changes you make, the more you'll be able to undo. Now, the final part of this, before we go to your questions, is nutrients. There are over 500,000 studies in the peer-reviewed literature, including on PubMed, about the chemistry, the potency, the safety, and efficacy of nutrients. So when a doctor says, well, they don't do anything, he's just, or she's just unaware of the science. But in point of fact, we need magnesium. Magnesium intake and colorectal cancer are equated, according to Imperial College London. We need magnesium. We need calcium. We need about 1,000 milligrams of each. We need coenzyme Q10. This is a superstar for anti-aging. Ideally between 300 to 500 milligrams. We need the B complex at 50 milligrams. We also need extra vitamin B12. We need vitamin C at between 3,000 to 6,000 milligrams a day under normal conditions. We need about 800 units of vitamin E and tocotrienols. A superstar is L-carnosine, C-A-R-N-O-S-I-N-E. We need between 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams a day because it can help stop the shortening of telomeres. We need NAD, or NADH, the nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. It is terrific for overcoming fatigue and helping protect us against amyloid plaques in the brain. It's absolutely one of the most important things we can take to relieve anxiety and reduce heart rates in patients with chronic fatigue syndrome. PPQ, we need about 10 to 20 milligrams. It enhances the mitochondria. We need pine bark extract, or pycnogenol. Pycnogenol is very important. It helps protect our liver and kidneys and helps protect from hypertension, reduces C-reactive protein. Very important. Turmeric and curcumin, we need about 200 to 500 milligrams a day. Helps with cognitive functioning as we age. Helps mitigate metabolic and oxidative alterations caused by hormone deprivation, postmenopausal in particular. Resveratrol, 100 to 300 milligrams of resveratrol a day. It is tremendous as an anti-aging nutrient. So these are the nutrients that our body needs in the anti-aging arena. This is what we have to focus on. So there we have an overview that gave you the big picture with examples of people who had followed a protocol in a health study that I did, and it changed their life. In fact, there was one woman who wasn't there. Her name was Cindy. She lost 180 pounds. And there's a guy who was in that with her. I actually filmed them all before and after because sometimes people don't believe the results could be gotten. So we film everyone coming into a study and everyone leaving the study, and you hear the results. In fact, when I get back to New York in 4 weeks, I'm going to do a 4-week study just on the subject of diabetes and arthritis. I believe we can reverse both in 28 days. So I'll do a study to prove it. So now we know here's the things that make a difference, and they're equal in importance. Your diet, that's 15% if it's a perfect diet. Lots of live foods, green juices, high fibers, varieties, tremendous varieties in fruits and vegetables, grains, nuts and seeds, legumes, tubers. From rutabaga and parsnips to turnips and kohlrabi to all the different types of grapes. And then you have exercise, not a little, but a lot. And then you have stress management. And each person can find different ways that suit them to de-stress. Those three things together represent 45%. And taking in the right nutrients is another 15%. I've seen phenomenal results when people are doing that. So then what's the difference? You're eating right, you're exercising, you're dealing with stress, and you're properly taking the nutrients. And the last phase is quality of life, because when I've traveled around the world studying other cultures, the big difference is that those people in those other cultures, they're happy. Now, here's what's interesting. They're happy, but they're not taking supplements. They frequently smoke. So how is it that they're not doing what we're doing and they're living longer lives? Because more important than just the diet or exercise and stress management is the quality of what you believe in. Are you living for something other than your work? Because when you go to Spain, you go up into the mountains in Italy, you go into Portugal, you go into Ireland, Scotland, all the places in that part of the world, but then you go to Jamaica and Trinidad and Barbados. You find people live for the passion of life itself, the joy of watching their family and sharing friendships in Jamaica, walking to church on Sundays. I used to go down a lot to Jamaica, and I would talk with people in the different parts, from Ocho Rios to Montego and Kingston, and people just enjoyed their lives. They weren't stressed about everything. So understand, if on the scale of 1 to 100, if 100 is death, disease frequently only manifests where you can see it or feel it after 50 on the scale. Cancer just doesn't pop up one night. Your arteries just don't block all in one night. So if you did the perfect diet and exercise and took supplements, by itself, that may not be enough to exceed the disease. That's why we have not been implementing in our society, because our medical model doesn't believe in it, the body-mind spiritual approach. But in other cultures, they're living longer lives because they're happier. Americans are not happy. We're miserable people. We're highly judgmental. Everybody has an opinion about everything, and rarely is it right. But we're not changing anything. You'll see that in the new film that I'm going to be premiering shortly when I come back to New York, because it doesn't have a happy ending. And, you know, my production crew was concerned. Gary, you're not giving people hope. And I said, because there is no hope. There's no hope. There's hope for individuals. You know, you want to know the best places in the world to live so you don't end up having, you know, floods flood you out, or, you know, fine. We're going to show people that. But we're not going to change. We have not changed, and we will not change, because the best and brightest, the so-called professional class, and that's where all of our opinion makers and policymakers come from. That's where all the people in the president's cabinet comes from, that heads all the universities come from, that heads all the journals come from, and all the think tanks and all the foundations. Every place you turn to get an expert's opinion, those people are not going to change at all, nor are their children. They're careerists. They're into money, lifestyle, and more of everything. They're not going to become vegans. So who's going to lead? We got a young 16-year-old, 17-year-old, she's now, young lady over in Europe who decided to go on strike on Friday a year and a half ago, and she sat outside of her school. She protested global warming and what wasn't being done about it, like becoming a vegan. Well, just this year she had 1.2 million students go on strike protesting, and she went before Parliament and she raised hell. And that was good. I went to the UN just a couple months ago when that same strike was happening in Europe the same day. I went to the UN where everyone was supposed to be from there, and there were 3 people. 3 young people. 3. 1,200,000 Europe, 3 people here. So if you don't see people in the media who are changing, and you don't see politicians changing, and you don't see our celebrities changing, with a few exceptions, Arnold Schwarzenegger is vegan, and James Cameron is vegan, and Mark Ruffalo is vegan, and Woody Harrelson is vegan, but you're talking about a handful of people, and the world doesn't change because of a handful of people like that. You have to have at least 3.5% of people believing in something, committing themselves to it, demonstrating for it, before the rest of the people would change. So an empowered minority can stimulate a disempowered majority. But we don't even have that. Industry's not changing. The government's not going to change. The government agencies have been captured by people who make sure that there's no change. The media is not changing. the advocates are not changing, and the doomsayers are not changing. So where exactly are we supposed to have this great Marshall Plan to change the planet from what is inevitable and happening right now as we speak? Right now, the fourth largest city in all of India has no water as of this morning. I mean, they're out forever. It's gone. How did it happen when no one paid attention? In fact, they were farming water. That's what you have when you have people who are intentionally ignorant. And as a result, the whole society can stay intentionally ignorant. What about all the people living in California in those expensive $1 million homes up in the hills? Burned down, didn't they? What about all the people living in the wrong place? Missouri, Iowa. Yeah, what about them? Couldn't plan anything. Flooding. Mississippi, still flooding. What about the pollutants from all this runoff causing the largest dead zone in the history of our country in the Gulf of Mexico? Right now as we speak, what about 123-degree days where 200 million people in India have to move quickly, right now as we speak, where they could die from heat stroke? What about 2 feet of snow that just fell this morning in Colorado? So you see, when I say that we as a society are not going to do a damn thing, it's because we never have done a damn thing. Last time we ever did anything as a group was the Marshall Plan. That was a noble and good deed, but there's no opportunity for a Marshall Plan today because we are so divided in our interests and our needs and our personal needs and how we feel and what we want become more important in the world we live in. So multiply that now by how many people are vegans? 2.7%. How many Americans actually eat healthy every day? Under 3%. That means that 97% of all people in America are going to live a shorter life because they're not even getting their basic diet right, because they're believing what they were conditioned to believe on television. Oh, why should we go cook a meal when we can have some fast food? And let's have more food because Arby's got the meats, right? So everybody wants more. Now they got a grilled cheese sandwich. No, they got French toast, a sweet French toast, a refined carbohydrate, grilled till it's brown, with lots of high fructose corn syrup, acrylamides in the browning, which is the bun, and now you put your sausage on one, or you put your beef on another, and cheese. Everything the body should not have in it that speeds up its aging. But that's what everyone wants, and they want the alcohol. They want the stuff that they're conditioned to believe. So you have to decondition yourself. You have to have the courage, because there's no we out there that's going to come into your house and say, you know something, you don't need to be overweight, you don't need to have high blood pressure, you don't need to be looking 10 years older than you are, you can reverse all this. That's never going to happen. It's not going to happen the rest of your life. We're not going to save the planet. You're going to see major catastrophic disasters within the next 3 to 5 years. Listen to my show tomorrow. I'm going to be explaining what's happening in the Arctic and in the Siberian tundra, which is huge landmass. It's huge. It's larger than Spain, France, Germany, and Belgium put together. And that permafrost is melting. And with it, the methane's coming out. More methane can come out than all the methane that's in the world to this date. And that is only 5% of what's stored. And it's all melting. And that means that we could hit 4 degrees or 5 degrees Celsius in no time in the next year or two. That's what's possible. And then you're going to say, what happened? Well, if you're aware, then you got out of harm's way. If you didn't, now you're part of the problem. But we're not talking about the environment today. We're talking about our internal milieu. When we know what is on television, we don't know what's in our arteries. So we've got to stop being passive about our health and become very proactive. So that's the input. That's a lot of insight and information I've just given you. Now I'm going to address some of the calls. So let's go to the top here. And I also saw one of our listeners from Spain is on one of the islands listening today. So let's just see here. And that's Michael Toner from Menorca, Spain. Nice to have you with us today. And we have, let's see, where are the questions? I don't know, is it Chestoffer Williams? Still would like to meet Gary in person. Let me know when. And sorry, but I'm on the road, and when I'm back in the city, I'm up to my gazoot handling terminally ill cases. So if you have a question, ask it, because that meeting's not going to happen. Let's see. Sandy, what is the correlation between coffee and migraine headaches? Well, coffee is a vasoconstrictor. It changes our metabolism and adversely affects our thyroid, so you get that burst of energy, but it's not a natural energy. It's almost like hyperkinetic energy, and that's why people use coffee when they want to stay awake, but you pay a tremendous price at the biological level. It also is a diuretic. It throws your electrolytes out of balance, and it causes water your body needs to be thrown off, and so you actually can end up dehydrating. But a person says, but I had 8 cups of coffee today. That's a lot of water, but you threw it out because it's a diuretic. And also, it adversely affects the brain, and that's why when you withdraw, you start having migraine headaches. Your body's going through a withdrawal. So your brain is detoxifying just like it would from cocaine or heroin. So you've got to get off coffee and stay off of it. Oh, Saba, what is the name of the gentleman who ran the nursing home and he was successful with the administration of the protocol? Rewatch the film. It's up on YouTube. I don't know. I didn't speak to him after that. And the Margaret Teitz, T-E-I-T-S nursing home in Jamaica. Are there books you would recommend that explain how the organ systems work in our bodies? Yeah. You can get it anywhere. It's a body atlas of our anatomy, a basic anatomy book. It'll explain all of with photographs of every organ and how they work. Let's just see here. John. John, I'm not here to answer medical questions. I'm only here to answer questions dealing with the aging process. Danette, does green coffee bean have the same amount of caffeine as roasted? Well, the green coffee bean that has not been roasted is very high in ORAC, or antioxidants, but it's going to end up giving caffeine when you roast it. So there are nutrients where you're not getting the caffeine, but they're from the green coffee bean itself. From Jacqueline, what is the title of the video that was shown? It's titled How to Live Forever. And I showed it simply because a lot of people need the larger picture, the larger overview. You see, a lot of people process information from the right hemisphere of the brain, and they like the picture, they see things, and then they try to project their reality from what they're seeing or hearing. Other people are very analytical. They like details, they like facts. So I broke the program into segments so that we could get both. So what you would need to change, you saw in How to Live Forever. Then all the details as to how many years you would add or subtract to your own life, and then how to do that by sitting and asking yourself, how have you lived your life? And go back from early childhood up to this present day. Epigenetically, you have to look at the emotions, the kind of energy that your parents gave you. Was it positive or negative, or was it unconditionally loving, or were you expected to do a lot? I once had a woman that I counseled, and she was hyper critical of everyone, very negative, judgmental. And I said, why do you feel that you have the right to be judgmental about everyone else? And she stopped for a moment. She said, I don't know. I said, was your father judgmental of you? And she said, yes. What did he do? He was a professor. And how did he feel about you? I don't know. He was not very loving. and he expected me to do everything, and so you did everything. So you went through a process of trying to prove to your father that you deserved his love. Did he ever give you love? No, he would give me some support if I did well in my classes, straight A's, but if I got a B, there would always be, why'd you get a B? And I said, well, let me guess, you don't have any relationships, do you? Because every man in your life, no matter what they present, you're going to project them through your father's eye, and no one wants to be in any relationship where they're judged constantly and always with this putting them on the defensive. Who wants to walk around on pins and needles, afraid that if they do or say something, it'll offend someone and then they get attacked? I said, so the protocol is to go back and epigenetically do some tapping therapy with Dr. Henry Grayson over on 57th Street to undo that energy, epigenetic energy that's been in you since you were a child. Because all you're doing is just becoming your father in this stage of life. And she never forgave her father, never had a conversation with her father, or her mother, who was subordinate to the father. So you never know that what in your life is manifesting today because of the energy input you got earlier in your life. And I think it's very important you do that if you want to be healthy. You got to be happy. William says, I will need a good protocol, and I'm ready to change my life. Good. Dina, it was nice seeing Dolores Perry in the video. She gave me my first protocol back in 1994. Still on it today. Thanks, Dolores. By the way, Dolores and Buzz both look terrific. They're both doing great. I believe Buzz is nearly 85 now, and I met with him in Central Park doing a run around the park. Dolores is over in Brooklyn and still doing well there, too. Is black tea good for you, and how many cups a day? I would not drink black tea because it's rich in caffeine. I would drink green tea, oolong tea, or white tea decaffeinated. About 2 cups a day. Sandy, will decaffeinated coffee be less of a migraine trigger? Sandy, I already answered you. Give up coffee. Too many problems, not just the caffeine, too many other problems. Sandy, are you one of these people, Sandy, that asks 3,000 questions and then come up with 3,000 more? Jesus. When Dr. Gary Null has his 1 meal a day, what is it? Dying to know. Well, Sandy, you're not going to find out because that meal is meant for my body and my biochemistry. And I don't tell people what I take because I have built up my system to tolerate much higher levels of nutrient intake than other people. So if I went into, and this actually happens, I was having a wheatgrass juice, and someone says, oh, I'll have one of those, and I said, I wouldn't, don't do it. And so he had half what I had. He had 8 ounces of wheatgrass juice, and about a second after he drank it, he projectile vomited all over the poor guy behind the counter. And I said, you see, how'd you get down 16 ounces? Because I gradually build it up. You have to gradually build it up. But the fact that I eat 1 meal a day doesn't mean that's the only time I have nutrients. What's the purpose of a meal? The purpose of a meal is to bring nutrients into your body. The quality of those nutrients I'm bringing into my body are based upon what I'm trying to do. So if I'm, like tomorrow, I'm doing a 1 hour, 1 hour out of the, when the gun goes off, I'm going at 100 miles an hour for an hour tomorrow on one topic only. One topic. It's a classroom on the air. I won't tell you what it is. You can listen tomorrow at noon over the PRN.FM or WBAI in New York. It's a very important show. It's a whole in-depth understanding of a topic, not just nutritional, which it is, but it's also the politics of food, and you'll see the truth of it. So when I'm eating, I frequently juice my food. So I start my day with a smoothie, and in that smoothie I have my green stuff and red stuff and grape stuff and senior stuff and memory stuff and cardio stuff. I have all my stuffs. Then I throw in a lot of supplements, the Supreme Health Formula, and super antioxidants, which is the best I can put in my body, all the different antioxidants in one. Throw it all in the blender. And I also throw in a teaspoon of the coconut oil and flaxseed oil, and then some whatever nut butters I have, fresh organic walnut butter or almond butter, pumpkin seed butter, sunflower seed butter, tahini butter, raw and organic. I throw in a tablespoon. And then I have my Paraberry Blast, my red stuff in there. So that's an awful lot of nutrients. That represents about 60 different foods. But I've taken what was important in the food for me, and I've brought it down to its simplest, most biologically available form that I could possibly use, so I get the maximum absorption and utilization at the cell level. So I'm thinking about, okay, I'm going to be working late tonight because I want to write a commentary. I'm going to do on Wednesday. Tomorrow's show's done. And then I got to write my last thing for this big documentary on the world. And oh my God, you're going to love the cinematography. Oh, from the Amazon rainforest, going through it in a little blimp over the Amazon to show you how it's going dry, to the Sahara Desert, to Antarctica and the Arctic and the Russian steppes and the boreal forests and under the oceans, in the farms, the Midwest. It's a film like no other film you've ever seen, but I haven't written the dialogue. And unlike any other film I've ever done, this one's going to be heavy on dialogue. Normally, I don't have a lot of dialogue in my films. I only have transitions to explain what's happening. This one, the entire film is a dialogue. Because if I don't explain everything in detail, people will not understand what they're saying. They won't understand the importance of what they're saying. You see those bubbles, and I can show you bubbles coming up from the Arctic, and you'll say, okay, look, there's some bubbles in the Arctic. But then I can say that in one single summer, when the ice is free and the temperatures rise, we have what is called black water, meaning there's no ice to reflect the solar rays back into the atmosphere. And it's very shallow water. So that shallow water is receiving warm sun ray, and it's going down, it's melting and producing these cathrates. And these are coming up, billions. And then there's big burps coming. A big burp we've seen in Siberia, where suddenly you see this gigantic hole the size of a football field almost, and it's deep and it's wide. What was that? That's a methane gas release. That's a burp. What if you had 10 million methane burps in 1 year? You would produce more methane into the environment than's been produced during the entire Industrial Revolution from the 1840s till today. You would overnight send its temperatures rising. And that would be the end of life as we know it for much of the planet. That's how precarious we are. I've got to tell that story. And it's going to scare the shit out of everyone, because they deserve to have the shit scared out of them. I'm sick and tired of people being lazy intellectually, lazy emotionally, absolutely passive spectators watching everyone else supposed to go out there and fight their fights, look for the truth, where they never get their hands dirty, never have to confront any authority figures, never confront anything that causes them feel uncomfortable. No, okay. Now they're going to confront this. And this is the hardest hitting film I've ever done. People walk out of the film angry, upset, good, because maybe then they'll get off their worthless ass and do something. Well, first, Gary, I can't do anything because I'm hungry and I got to go to this McDonald's, have my... Yeah. Then you're increasing the likelihood this is going to happen. So you see, you got to wake people up, and a lot of people are in a really deep place, sleep. That film will wake them up, and you're going to see a lot of what we've been talking about there. Again, Jacqueline, I'm not here to talk about medical issues today. And Dina, I can change my diet as I'm almost there now. I'm not on any medication, but one of my 5 cats is on meds for the thyroid and an expensive food. What can I do to... again, raw foods for cats, wild salmon, sardines. They have needs for taurine and other amino acids in the essential oils that help them. And that's very important for massaging the fur for dogs and cats with coconut oil. Also helps the skin, but helps as a natural flea repellent. Ernie, what's good for pre-workout? You always want to take in a pre-workout your magnesium, L-carnitine, vitamin E, cayenne, high heat units, about 40,000 units in one capsule, coenzyme Q10, generally 100, 200 milligrams, vitamin C, 1,000 milligrams, and quercetin, 1,000 milligrams, vitamin E at about 400 units, and magnesium 400 units. And that's your pre, because that keeps your blood thin and protects the rhythm of your heart. And that way, you take it before and after, so it lessens your likelihood of a heart attack or stroke, big time. All right, and then take it in coconut water, so you're getting a lot of good potassium, which your heart also needs. Robert, could you give us an idea of your protocols for high blood pressure? Again, I'm not here to do the protocols. I'm here to do the anti-aging. That's a completely different issue, but I'll tell you where you can get that information in a moment. Martha, Gary has always said that we should stay away from processed foods like Frank's, sausage, etc. I found a vegan burger that I like, made by the Beyond Meat Company. They also make a sausage. Should I stay away from them since they are also processed, even though they are pea protein and not meat? First and foremost, the fact that something is vegan in and of itself doesn't mean that it's healthy. You can have a very sick diet on a vegan program by having pizza, vegan pizza. You're eating crust, you're eating some kind of artificial vegan cheese, you can eat potato chips, you can eat bagels. So the mere fact someone's vegan means nothing. Being a healthy vegan, that's something. So you have to make sure, as I said earlier, that your foods are 70% raw, and those that are cooked are lightly cooked, because you want the enzymes, the catalysts of life. The spark plugs in our body are the enzymes. When you cook foods, you're destroying their enzymes substantially. And so look to see, is it hydrolyzed protein? That I wouldn't take into my body. All right? Wouldn't take it. And if you've ever been by the health food store at 89th and Broadway, try one of those veggie burgers, because those are all fresh, no processing at all. Then let's see here, I'll take a couple more quickly. Williams, hi Gary, could you let me know the stuff I need to clean my body from smoking and alcohol and bad food and start to live my best life? I will in a few moments. Joe, my mom is 96, has swollen ankles, on a low-salt diet, on Lasix. I give her, again, I can't tell. You're asking, don't anyone ask me medical questions. That's not today's theme. I did that webinar on heart disease, diabetes, and other conditions recently, and you can go to that because there I give you protocols. Sheila, how can I figure out what supplements and vitamins you're supposed to take when you can't find a physician who believes in what you're trying to do or will help you? In a past program, you mentioned supplying a list of holistic physicians. I'm having a problem finding someone in the New York area. Again, I'll address that in a moment. Also, from Robert, a lot of people in the alternative movement seem to believe in severe minimums in all forms of sugar, including fruit. I don't believe in minimums of fruit because candida is not due to an eating fruit. Candida is due to an imbalance in your immune system, and stress is the number one cause. Then the sugars or the mushrooms or other things can contribute to its expansion. But when I'm working with candida and chronic allergies, the first thing I do is I focus upon de-stressing, in effect detoxifying our emotions. And for that, I ask people to watch one of 5 films in this order. Start with the documentary I did called Overcoming the Dark Side. Overcoming the Dark Side, that's number 1. Once they've watched that and watched it 2 or 3 times and got the messages from it, because it's packed with messages, Then number 2, happiness. Number 3, love. Number 4, anger, taming the beast within. And number 5, letting go of fear. Those 5 I designed to help people with the emotions that they have to process, and so that they're in a better place emotionally. And so that does more for you than eliminating fruit. All your berries are important anyhow, especially the cranberries, blueberries, raspberries. Susan, is tinnitus reversible? Yes. Andreas, you have not mentioned fasting. It's because that's a separate issue. You can extend the aging process by controlling caloric intake. And when I'm talking about a healthy vegan diet and exercising, your weight's going to come down because you're not taking in the excess calories. In fact, I was the first scientist before Dr. Roy Warford who got the credit for it by 7 years, where I fasted rats over a year, and they lived 22% longer. Then when I got rid of all their water, and I gave them fresh-made juices every day, and I got rid of all processed foods, and I gave them living foods like sprouts and whole grains and beans, and I got rid of their cages, and the whole third floor was just an open space where they could run around, and they never got bitten once by any rat in 33 years. But it would freak people out when they came up there, so I finally had to put a glass wall down one side so people like to come up at night and watch me do experiments, and I did. But I fasted and then cleansed and had a rejuvenative diet, and they lived almost 40% longer. And I did it 3 times to show that it was reproducible. So yes, modified fasting is a topic by itself. And I believe in fasting, but it's got to be controlled, and you have to have it supervised. Because everybody will hear what I'm saying different when I say fast. But control your caloric intake to what your body actually needs. Stephen, you need a protocol for hepatitis C. Again, in a few minutes, I'll give you someone who can help you with that. Michael, question on Danshan Chinese herb. No. Aaron, this question is for Gary. Is there a way to remineralize and repair teeth and or tooth decay? Yes. Rhonda, I'm taking fistfuls of vitamins with juices, vegan diet, but was told too many vitamins aren't healthy either. That might be true, but that's why you should do it under supervision of someone who understands nutritional biochemistry. Many of the dietitians don't, nutritionists don't, and absolutely doctors do not. But if you're doing it properly, then what is too many? If I did a conference with 7,000 doctors in Washington, D.C., I was invited there based on a paper I'd done on reversing brain aging. I'd reversed Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, and multiple sclerosis, as well as autism. And generally at these conferences, you bring in a paper. The paper is published in a peer-reviewed journal, and then each person in the conference will have 22 minutes who is making a presentation, and everyone has their little computer, and they're reading your article. It's very boring. I never think anything all that positive comes from these places. And I didn't bring my paper. Instead, I walked out on stage, and I said, I apologize for the changing of the protocol, but I wanted to introduce you to some people. So I brought people out on the stage, and the people I brought on the stage, I had just finished a 16-month protocol, and I had reversed end-stage Alzheimer's, and these people came out, and they spoke, and Jonathan Ortega, who had full-blown autism, he came out and was reading where he was Outstanding Student of the Month at a major school. He's graduated from college now at the top of his class, completely normal. And you would think that this would be news. Well, indeed it would be if I was a regular doctor, or a regular scientist, and there was a way that we could patent something to make money. But if you cure people or improve their state of well-being, and there's no money to be made, it's just, it's simple and easy, then we're not interested in it. So if I told people how many vitamins these people were they would become apoplectic. But in point of fact, it was exactly what their body needs. That's why it has to be guided. Alicia, how do you reduce cellulite in the thighs? That's not about today. John, what is good for, I told you that. Stephen, what is your opinion of eating popcorn? If it's organic, airborne popcorn, and put some grapeseed on it, oil, and it's delicious. That's fine, and it's good if you're hungry at night and you want something that's non-caloric that won't keep you up at night. Popcorn will do it. What about cycling supplements? You should give your body vitamin breaks. Generally, it's once a week, and then once a month every 4 months. Ben, to add to Rhonda's question, can you enlighten us on the synergistic synergies of taking certain supplements together, like turmeric with a fat to maximize its impact? Well, you want to take it with black pepper, and you don't want to take turmeric. You want to take curcumin if you're getting a therapeutic or a functional value from it. And then I would take vitamin C and quercetin together. I would take vitamin D and the omega-3 fatty acids and coenzyme Q10 together, ubiquinol, because there's a greater synergistic effect. Easy, what can be done when human growth hormone is very low? 70 years of age, vegan, for years run 3 times a week hike. Well, you can look at rebalancing your testosterone levels naturally, which is not difficult. In fact, the very program I've been giving you does exactly that. Plus, you're exercising. I would exercise 6 days a week because exercising stimulates natural growth hormone, and more of the juices, especially the green juices. Avaro, Gary, what is the best place to live in the United States or the world for the Westerners? You can't make that statement because if you're single or married, if you have a family or not, if you're in the middle of your career or at the end of your career, if you are independently wealthy or you're just living off your savings, you have to evaluate all this in order to know best places. But I would certainly say Portugal is a great place to live. Ireland is a great, especially Southern Ireland, around Cork, is a great place to live. France, all over France, except that not in the cities, is not only a great place to live, but also aesthetically and culturally one of the most important places, because the French are so deep into their history and culture and social issues. They're an extraordinarily enlightened people, and you can engage in some wonderful conversations on anything that they're up on. I would also not go anywhere in South or Central America because narco-terrorism is everywhere. I won't go into it now, but you have no idea how bad it is for Americans thinking that, it's a great place to retire and live. It was, not now, because kidnapping and extortion and what are called the 10%ers, not a place I'd be. In the United States, there are a lot of places I would not move because they're not sustainable for the future. You've just seen states such as Arkansas and also you've also, let's see, we've had Kansas and is really bad, Colorado, most of California, New Mexico, Nevada, South Dakota wouldn't be there. Places that were meccas for progressive ideals and wonderful times in the past, like San Francisco. I remember Haight-Ashbury. I remember going out there. Denver, and then Boulder, which was the hippest place to be, and then go up in Santa Fe, and you go up to Taos, New Mexico, and all those are done, overdeveloped, over-gentrified. The people who made it interesting, the artists, the creative thinkers, are all gone. They can't afford to be there. That's even true now of Boston. Florida, no. One more Category 5, and it's over, lights out for Florida. You'll see, in fact, in my new film, I have a whole showing of what happened with the last flooding, and because I was impacted by it with my animal sanctuary where I live, and massive damage. Now, I've repaired all that damage, but I'm not going to do it again. So one more, and insurance companies weren't paying rightful amounts. And my neighbors tell me how little they were getting, 3 cents on the dollar, though they had paid 100% of their premiums. You have one more Category 5 hit, either Miami or Naples, Fort Myers, Tampa. It's over. It's over. You'll see the greatest evacuation of people who can afford to move will move because it's going to be more and more tropical storms at higher densities. I would say if I had one place to mention to be the safest place, the most progressive place, and the most inexpensive place to live right now, originally I would have said up in Wisconsin and also in Minnesota. Not now. I've had to change completely my thinking because of how far down the Arctic vortex is coming. When you can drop 50 degrees in one afternoon, kill over 36,000 animals just in Minnesota alone in one day, and then you got heat waves, and then destroy the germination process of the seeds. Soil gets hot, it won't germinate, and or it gets flooded, it destroys them, and that's what's happening now in several Missouri. Missouri is just absolutely devastated. Absolutely, the whole state, all the farming, devastated. Louisiana, devastated this year. North Carolina, devastated. So, yep, people can rebuild, but should they? The best place I would say today will be up in Vermont. Lots of good areas there, providing that you're up on hills, not in the valleys. Valleys are flooding. Hills in Vermont are great. Maine is still good. New Hampshire is good. Nova Scotia is good. So that whole area is good. I would stay away from West Virginia. Strip mining and the pollution and the hydrofracking is everywhere, especially with Pennsylvania and upstate New York. And New Jersey's too expensive, the taxes, the corruption. And down the East Coast, the Shenandoah Valley in Virginia is still very good. And historically, I would have said North Carolina, not after what I saw in the last 2 years with one storm after another hitting North Carolina, flooding basements. And now you have the phenomenon of water bombs hitting, where so much water is let out of clouds that there's nowhere in the ground for water to go. So the water that's down there is waterlogged, and it comes back up, and it's going into people's basements. So now we have not just rising sea, we have rising soil, rising water out of people's backyards, not even near the oceans. And that's a big problem because it destabilizes people's foundations, and it gets mold going throughout the whole house, and that's a big problem because you can't change it. There's no way of draining that water out. Polluted water near the aquifers and the whole Florida Keys going clear up the whole east coast of Florida, and then toxic red algae now, which was once or twice a year for a week or two, now it's half the year. You can't even go near the ocean. You'll see I filmed on the ocean. And in all those beautiful canals in Marco Island, forget it. Polluted, dead fish, dead manatees, dead dolphins, everywhere. California, forget it. Most of Texas, forget it. Colorado, Oklahoma, forget it. Utah, forget it. So about 70% of America in the future will not be sustainable. I wished I could say otherwise, but it won't. I would say northeast Texas, the area that's at a higher elevation and has better temperatures, and between the mountains of Louisiana, Arkansas, and Texas coming together. It's a totally different place than any other place around. There's water, lakes, land, inexpensive, and a lot of the people who couldn't afford to live these other places like Austin are moving in, so you got a lot of progressive, artistic people. That would be my number one choice. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up in a minute. Let me just, let's take a few more calls here. Bob, sleep disorders are a huge problem these days. I wake up almost every night after 3 or 4 hours sleep. Can't fall back to sleep. It's driving me nuts and destroying my life. I'm reading the Ultramind Solution by Mark Hyman. Any suggestions? Again, that's not what today's program is about, but I'll put you in someone who can use a protocol I've created that can help people sleep. But unplug all electrical devices. Get an electrometer, make sure that there's no electrical pulses coming out of the electrical system. Don't have watches that are throwing off electrofrequency pulses or electric meters. Don't just turn off your computer. Anything that's got a blue light is going to keep you up. Make sure you don't have any sound problems. Don't eat within 3 hours going to bed, and don't take any liquids within 3 hours going to bed. And make sure you're getting some 5-hydroxytryptophan and melatonin, and that will certainly help. And theanine, which will help also, which is in green tea, and it's a calming. Michael, so you use a juice extractor or a bullet Vitamix? I don't use a Vitamix, I use a juice extractor. And then I take the pulp and use that as a vegetable stock. Tony, Gary, do you have a specific protocol or dietary supplement recommendation for someone recovering from a stroke? Yes. Watch the film Preventing and Reversing Heart Disease Naturally, and there's a book that goes with that. Julie, what do you think about lectins? Yes. It's positive. Susan, thank you. My question on tinnitus, where can I find information on this? And there's several places. Nutritional healing would be a good one, prescription for nutritional healing. Curtsy, what is the healthy alternative to coffee? Again, green teas. Is there a cure for osteoarthritis? Yes. And is there a cure for chronic sinusitis? Yes. And decongestants are dangerous to the brain? Yes. Aaron, can you explain how to remineralize teeth? That is not for today, but that is something I do discuss. And Antonio, what do you recommend for eating at night? Very lightly at night. And Suzanne, is New York City a good place to live? If you're very rich and don't mind stress and dirtiness, don't mind, the hyperkinetic energy, then you can do all right. If you're a regular person, a middle-class person, no, it's not a good place to live. Hasn't been for a long time. For those of us who've lived in New York City our entire adult lives, we've seen it decay. We've seen the end of small businesses. We've seen the quaintness of neighborhoods been taken over by gentrification. We've seen now the inclusion of these mega expensive buildings that are mainly for investment. All you have to do is go down to 57th Street near the West End Avenue, 12th Avenue, 10th Avenue, and Riverside Drive. There's a theater there. It's a good theater, by the way. It plays art films. I go there all the time. And called The Frontier. Six little tiny theaters inside this movie complex. Some is small, I guess, about 25 seats. Almost always empty when I'm there. You go outside these modern buildings with multi-million-dollar apartments. I'm looking up, they're almost all empty. Why? These were for investments by people in other countries. So it didn't bring new people to the neighborhood. It just changed the economic dynamic, making it more expensive to live there. I don't see the point. All right? Alvaro, what is the most improvement if a person did everything right? I've seen, oh my goodness, come to one of the retreats if you want to see that. You'll see things that you will not believe physically possible. I mean, it depends upon how long a person's committed and what they do, but if they do everything right, you can transform your whole biochemistry. You can take damaged cells and reverse the damage, and you could substantially lengthen your lifespan of quality years, and physically as well. Look younger. Maxine, you mentioned chelating naturally. How do you chelate naturally? Vitamin C and chlorophyll, chlorella, spirulina, wheatgrass juice, and cilantro. Great chelators, taking the heavy metals out of your body. Sandy, Gary, just want to mention that your retreats are wonderful. I attended 3 years ago. It was a life-changing experience, although it's a battle every day. I learned what to eat, how to distress. Just want to thank you for a wonderful experience and wonderful memories. You and Miss Luann Panesi were opening my eyes to healthy and happy living. Good. Maxine, I answered that. And finally, Michael, pomegranate organic juice or powder that includes skin. I would use the powder, and Bill, stirring juices. Stirring about somewhere around 34, 35 degrees, and that'll last longer. I do not recommend Antonio collagen supplements. Now, I've taken all the questions here and I've answered them all. We've been on the air now for 3.5 hours. I told you these events run a little long. Now, I want to give you the last bit of advice. I only counsel terminally ill people, and you have to have a letter from your doctor showing you're terminally ill, you've tried everything and nothing is working, and in effect, you're facing hospice care. And I'm packed. It's scary because when I get back to New York, I sometimes have hundreds and hundreds of these people, and I wish I could do more to see more of them, and I spend a lot of time, my evenings spent helping them. But since I couldn't help everybody with everything, I wrote books, I do documentaries on topics I think will help people, including these webinars. But there's nothing like talking with people when you have a problem to try to help you. And the one person who is helping a lot of people is Luann Panesi. So if you would like to be guided in your rejuvenation program, Luann will be happy to do that for you. Let me give you Luann's phone number. You can call her. She sees people, she counsels people 10 times a year, which is phenomenal. She's very inexpensive for that, and she's very thorough. So there's no rushing it. So any question you have, she'll be happy to address. Her number is 903-881-7008. Again, Luann Panesi, 903-881-7008. 903-881-7008. Now, Luann, who herself has reversed 3 life-ending diseases, and as she has knowledge, she would be dead today if she didn't go to a retreat way back in the early 1990s down in Texas, and reversed hepatitis B and breast cancer and a lot of other conditions. She was a nurse administrator for 18 years at Long Island Jewish Hospital. Now she's one of America's leading holistic nurses. Plus, she also has graduated from Oriental medical teachings as well, so she can combine a lot of things. And she's attended 40 of the health support groups, so she has good knowledge. She'll be able to help a lot of you with your individual guidance. Also, I'm only doing 1 retreat this year. That's it. Over the next 18 months, I'm doing it once, and that is in October, the last 2 weeks of October, and we'll be announcing it in the near future on WBI because we help do that as a fundraiser for the station. If you want to come, let Luann know, because they're always filled. And unlike some of these places that, they'll do a retreat and they'll charge you, $8,000, $6,000. Hippocrates, I think, is $5,500, and there's 160 people. This I limit. I try to limit to around 40 people. That way everyone gets personal attention. It's a beautiful bucolic environment. It's what's called the villa, because it's actually an authentic villa. And I'm there the whole time and doing a lot of lecturing. So we're happy to help people, but it always fills up. So if you want to join us, let Luann know, and you have her number. Again, I'll give you her number for personal counseling, 903-881-708. So we're at the end of this program. It's been 3.5 hours together. You've gotten a lot of information. Not all of it will apply to you, but take your time now. Take your time and sit without any distractions, without cell phones, or without TV, or without anything else, and start to process where you are in your own life cycle, biologically, genetically, with your telomeres, versus your chronological age. Now, it may take you a day or two or longer to finally put the pieces together for yourself, because only you know how long you've done things healthy and to what degree have you done them in a healthy way. Well, I take vitamins all the time, Gary. I'm a healthy person, and I find that they take 200 milligrams of vitamin C a day. That's not doing anything except preventing scurvy. So you have to really take an honest, in-depth look. When you do, then you write down a number. Okay, I'm going to add this amount to my lifespan. But let's say that you smoked or you drank or you took drugs or you had a bad diet or you had a stressful relationship or you had a stressful work relationship or you had other things in your life that happened. Well, then that takes years off your life. So you add up the years for the bad and you add up the years for the good, and then you apply that and you get some idea, and again, it's not exact, but you get an idea of where you're at on that scale, and that will help you. And don't be concerned about other people agreeing or disagreeing with the choices you're making, because they're not the ones who have to go into the hospital room in the ICU when you've had your heart attack, embolism, or stroke. Oh, and by the way, I found out someone that used to work for me in our film division, but was very, very much in junk foods. Didn't want to hear. In fact, even came to me and said, "Look, I'm here to work on these films. I'm good at what I do, but I like my diet the way it is. And don't tell me what to eat." And I said, "I don't tell anyone to eat. I've never told an employee what to eat. I don't ask them about their religion or their sexual orientation or their politics. That's none of my business." I said, "So I have no intention of, you can eat whatever you want to eat. It's your business." Okay. She just had her third embolism and died. And I hate to, I was going to invite her to a premiere and found that out. That's another name I got to add to the list. That was a choice. Being defiant. And I have members of my family who are defiant. They wouldn't stop smoking. They wouldn't stop eating garbage. They wouldn't stop being stressed. And they all paid a price for it in the end. And you're sad to see that. I can't tell you how many times I've gone through mourning for people that I cared about, and they didn't have to die. Because I had a lot of friends. You get that call, and you think, wow, they were only 54. Why didn't they call me and tell me? And one guy told me. So the reason that she didn't call you about her cancer was because she had not done anything in the healthy way, and she was, she didn't know if she could. Well, had she spoken with me, I could have given her a lot of reasons to make better choices. So I'm in that unusual position of having people in my life as friends and family members who could have made better choices and chose not to because they thought maybe it wasn't their time. But the Buddha said it right, and he said it best. You have no time. So if you don't know when you're going to die, start thinking about how you should be living. Breaking habits, being free. Stop these foolish rituals of living every day like it doesn't count, but you got through it and you did what you're supposed to do, so you got rewarded with a paycheck, so you can live in a place you can't afford with things you can't do. Why anyone would live in New York City now who's not rich is beyond me. Because the very things that make New York unique, its culture, is so damn expensive today that you can't afford it. So people come to the city because of things they can't afford to see and won't participate in. They'll have all the negatives, all the stress, the overcongestion, the angry people, the judgmentalism, the in-your-face attitude, the pollution, and the high expenses for even tiny little places. And yet they're there for something else, and they'll never find that. That's the irony of the city today. It would be the last place in the world I'd recommend anyone live. Thank you all for tuning in. I look forward to our next webinar. Have a nice day.